Hey you! Are we recording? 100 live streams! Could be! Hello, and welcome to this, our 100th live stream. Celebration? Could be! We hope you love the opening. It took us a little while to put that together, but we're happy with it. We're happy with it. So that was our special gift to you, that we did a little opening that's a little bit out of the ordinary. And we got a great kick out of doing it. So we are going to do what we do here every Friday, which is we are going to take your questions on ancient Egypt and the Bible. And the rules are the same as always, which is super chats have priority, but we also take non-super chat questions too. And if you're going to do one of those, put a Q and a colon in front of your question so that I know it's directed to me. State your question only once so that I don't get lost as I scan through the live chat. And if it has to do with a verse in the Bible or a word in an ancient language, please give me a little context. So if it's like a verse in the Bible, tell me what book it's from, what chapter and what verse number. Or if it's from an ancient language, tell me what language it's from and what you think it means. Just I get a little context here. So with that said, we're going to start with some non-super chats here. And we're starting off with 3 tonight. And first on our list is from Adrian Rodriguez. And he asks, how long have you and Kiara been married, and where did you meet each other? Ooh, personal question. Okay. We've been married for 24 years. We met at a science fiction convention in San Jose, California. And we met at a sort of Christian sort of get-together inside this bigger science fiction convention. And I saw this charming young lady across the room. And she made some very interesting comments about the theory of evolution. And I said to her, hey, you have some very interesting views on the theory of evolution. Would you like to go out, have lunch, and discuss them? And surprisingly, she said yes. So anyway, I hope that answers your question. Thank you very much for the question. Very much appreciate it. Okay, our next non-super chat tonight is from Chow Yi. And he asks, how were the Canaanites treated under Israelite rule, and how did they manage to maintain their distinctive identity? Ooh. This is an ongoing topic of debate. Now, how were they treated under Israelite rule? Well, some cases good, some cases not so good. The Canaanite culture in Canaan was in real difficulty by the time the Israelites arrived. They were sort of being pushed out. Not just by the Israelites, but also the Philistines. So they were kind of caught in the middle. They had diminishing birth rates over the centuries, so that they were having a lot of difficulty maintaining control and basically the integrity of their culture. Now, with all that said, there is one strand of Canaanite culture that did survive and did basically flourish, which was the Phoenicians. A lot of the Phoenicians have their origins in Canaanite culture. And basically, when they went to the seas and spread out all over the Mediterranean, the Phoenicians managed to perpetuate Canaanite culture through their new colonies, such as at Carthage, such as in in Italy and Spain and France. Not France, sorry, Spain. But they spread out all over the Mediterranean, basically as a seafaring people. So that was the sort of the vestige of Canaanite culture that did survive, at least until the Common Era. But their days were numbered in Canaan. They just were they just couldn't compete against both the Israelites and the Philistines. So anyway, thank you very much for the question. I hope that helped, and it's an interesting question, but it is still a question that's really hotly debated. We do know there was intermarriage between Canaanites and Israelites. We do know that the Israelites did not wipe out the Canaanites, but there is a point where it was assimilation was inevitable. So anyway, thank you very much for the question, and very much appreciate it. And our third non-super chat here is from Darkblade. And he asks, how reliable is Petrovic when he talks about biblical and ancient Near Eastern history from 1000 BC or after? He's, of course, talking here about Douglas Petrovic. Not terrific, would be my answer. There's some things he's okay on. I mean, he's going to be a lot better than, say, David Rohl on things such as the subject of the kings. But when he starts getting into his early alphabetic inscriptions, it just goes off the rails. So it's going to depend, but I think there's a lot better sources out there. So I would not use him for most of biblical history just because there's such an agenda to what he's writing that it really colors everything he writes. So with that said, if you have a choice, pick someone else, is essentially what I would advise here. So anyway, thank you very much for the question. Very, very much appreciated. And that covers our first 3 non-super chats. Okay. Now we're getting to the super chats. And our first super chat is one we accidentally skipped last week. So we're going to make good for that, because we want to make sure we at least cover every super chat. And it comes from Kwame Adu 007 for $20 American. Thank you very much for the super chat from last week. And he goes, good evening, Dr. Falk. I've seen some disagreements when it comes to dating Egyptian chronology. Yeah, usually from dilettantes and fringe proponents. What dates do you accept for all the pharaohs from I to Ramses II, and what would your date for the Exodus be, and why? Okay, now those are 2 really huge questions. Let me give you the dates from I to Ramses II here. All right, I'm going to pull up here, Groundhog. Just a moment here. And I'll be just a second. Okie dokie. What I'll do is I will see if I can pull this up. Okay. Let's see here. Window capture. Okay. Alrighty. Okay. And this is a snapshot from Groundhog Chronology Test Laboratory, which is basically the computer analytics software that I basically designed and used to validate chronologies. So for I would pick the dates of 1324 to 1320. For Horemheb, which is his successor, I'd take 1320 to 1305. Ramses I, 1305 to 1303. Seti I would be 1303 to 1288, and then Ramses II from 1288 to 1222. Okay? So that basically covers the dates for those particular the kings, the last final kings of Dynasty 18 and the first few kings of Dynasty 19. Okay? Now, those are the dates I would accept, and, plus or minus 5 years of those dates is probably okay. What date would you, where would I date the Exodus? I'd date that at 1265. Basically, the 25th regnal year of Ramses II. Plus or minus 7 years. We could go wiggle 7 years both ways. That's possible. So it could be 7 years before that or 7 years after. But I wouldn't go much far outside of that. But that's also because I'm correlating the Exodus to the death of Ramses II's firstborn son, who was Amenhotep Kopshef. So that's where I would nail it down. Now, I'd also nail it down too with the abandonment of Advaris in mid-Dynasty 19, which happens to be the reign of Ramses II, and the appearance of the Israelites in Canaan as recorded in the 5th regnal year of, or before is when it would have been observed, but the Stela of Merneptah, the victory Stela, and it was the so-called Israel Stela, which dates to roughly 1217 BC. So you take 1217 and you add, say 40 years to that, and you're going to get something pretty close to roughly 1260s. Now you're going to have to add a few years onto that, but that'll get you to 1265. So anyway, that is my justification for that particular date of the Exodus. Is essentially it coincides with the death of Amenhotep Kopshef in Ramses II's 25th regnal year. So anyway, I hope that answered your super chat. Thank you for bringing that to our attention that we had missed it. We want to make sure, as I said, we cover all super chats. Thank you very much for the question. It's a great question, but we can really sort of get this into more detail if we had more time to do this. But that's sort of the brass tacks. That's the general argument for both of these. So anyway, thank you very much for the super chat. Very much appreciated. Our next super chat comes from Christian Benzel for €5. Thank you very much for the super chat. And he says, congratulations. Well, thank you. Like I've said before, we never thought we'd get to 100 live streams. Yeah, no one's more surprised than us. I mean, when we first started this live stream, we were just thinking, oh well, it was a way of sort of offloading some of the, how do I say this? We were getting so many questions on the Monday videos that I couldn't manage it all. It was just I was spending all my time answering questions. So it's like, okay, so let's make this 1 hour. Let's make this 1 hour, maybe an hour and a half, and let people ask questions, and we'll take as many questions as we can. What we didn't count on was super chats. People kept drawing it out with super chats, and it's like, okay, 3 hours later. I mean, I think our first live stream was 2 hours. We went over on our first live stream. Yeah, so we doubled it the first time. It's like, okay, obviously an hour is not going to do it. Hour and a half is going to do it. We're going to do 2 hour live stream. Okay, people will ask their questions, and about 6 weeks they'll get bored of this and move on. And oh, silly me. How much interest could there possibly be in ancient Egypt in the Bible?
This is a niche market.
I mean, everyone was telling us this is such a niche topic, and I said, yeah, it's a niche topic, but It'll be interest of some people. Faye of the Duan said, "You underestimate our power." Boy, howdy, did I.
1,000 live streams is nearly 2 years.
Oh boy,
Well,
I mean, there has not been a single live stream since like the second one that has been less than 3 hours. I mean, it's just like we've just been we've been really surprised how successful this has been. It's just shocked us, really shocked us. So anyway, I want to thank you very much for the super chat, and thank you for the congratulations. As I said, no one is more surprised than us that we made it to 100 live streams. So anyway, thank you very much for the super chat. Really appreciate it. Our next super chat is also from Christian Benzel, and for €2. Thank you very much. And then he says, "Everyone go by the Ark of the Covenant in its Egyptian context." And of course, what he's referring to is the book I published, or wrote, and was published through Hendrickson Publishers. I guess they're now Tyndale House, but yeah, we're really close to earning out on that book too. So we really appreciate everyone who's gone out and bought a copy of the book. Again, for those who haven't seen it, it includes about 100 of my own photographs. So you'll see lots of. It's richly illustrated. So we did put the extra mile into really making this a beautiful book. But as I said, yes, we're very, very close to earning out on this, which will make it easier for us to publish the next book. So we appreciate everyone who's bought a copy. Thank you so much for pitching it with a super chat here. Very, very much appreciate it. Next super chat here is also from Christian Benzel for €5. And he says, Leviticus 12, 3 and 5, why is the time of impurity twice as long in the case of a female baby asking for a friend? Saturum Sensio, everyone should get the Ark book. Now, that's a very interesting question. And let's see if we can pull up Leviticus and just take a look at this. Leviticus 12. And we'll pull up the Bible here, and we'll read the passage. Okay? We'll start at verse 2 here. "Speak to the sons of Israel, saying, when a woman gives birth and bears a male child, then she shall be unclean for 7 days. As in the days of her menstruation, she shall be unclean. And on the 8th day, the flesh of his foreskin shall be circumcised." Okay? "Then she shall remain in the blood of her purification for 33 days. She shall not again touch any consecrated thing, nor enter the sanctuary until the days of her purification are completed." Okay? "But if she bears a female child, then she shall be unclean for 2 weeks, as in her menstruation, and she shall remain in the blood of her purification for 66 days. Okay? When the days of her purification are completed for a son or for a daughter, she shall bring the priest at the door of the tent of the meeting a 1-year-old lamb for a burnt offering, and a young pigeon or turtle dove for a sin offering." All right. Now, the exact reason for this is not explicitly stated. And there's been speculations. There's been speculations of why the purification for a daughter is twice as long as for a male child. And some of it seems to come down to the fact that the male child is being circumcised. So there's a basically she's being purified from the blood of the childbirth, but there's also being blood shed on behalf of the mother by the male child. So there is some illusion that might be that there's a propitiation here being offering through the circumcision ritual. But we're not really sure. We're really not sure. There's been speculations, and there's a variety of opinions on this. So, unless the text says explicitly, we're not exactly sure why. But that would be sort of my initial thoughts on this. I'd have to go to the commentaries to look and see if there's anything a more compelling reason. And I haven't done that in this particular case. I haven't gone to the commentaries and looked at this issue specifically. But that would be my thought on this, is that the circumcision is cutting the time in half, more than the times being doubled in the case of a female child. Okay? So, and in that case, it's sort of half dozen of one, six of the other at that point. Whereas, okay, I think here that it's just more along the lines of that it's being reduced in the case of a male child. Whereas with the female child, it's not being reduced. So that's where I think the explanation would be for this. But again, we're not explicitly told. And if we're not being explicitly told, there's going to be always room for speculation here. So anyway, I'm going to thank you very much for the super chat. Very much appreciated. And should I go into the commentaries and find a better explanation, I'd be more than happy to update this. So I'm fully prepared to say, hey, I haven't looked at this in detail. Could be wrong. All right? So thank you very much for the super chat. Very, very much appreciated. Our next super chat here is from Christian Bensel for €5. Thank you very much for the super chat. Deuteronomy 12:9-8. Why does Aaron not get punished like Miriam with leprosy? Cetera senso, since everyone should get the Ark book. Okay, let's talk about Deuteronomy. Now, there's been a lot of commentary on this passage. A lot of it. Deuteronomy 12:9-10. Let's see here. I don't think this is... No, that's the wrong passage. Deuteronomy 12:9-10. Yeah, it's a different passage. It might... Let's see, is it Numbers 12? It's Numbers 12. Okay. Now, Miriam and Aaron, we're going to start verse 1 here and go to... Because I think context is really important on this one. Then Miriam and Aaron spoke against Moses because of the Cushite woman whom he had married, for he had married a Cushite woman. Now, this is not Zipporah. Zipporah is not a Cushite. Zipporah was a Midianite. We don't know what happened to Zipporah at this point. But Moses marries a Cushite. Okay? And a lot of exegesis here is going to basically say that Miriam and Aaron are speaking from a racist place. That's not what's going on here. This is the pretense of the real issue. Okay? They are starting with this issue of his marriage, and they're going somewhere else with it. And you have to follow the question to gather what's happening here. Verse 2. And they said, has the Lord indeed only spoken through Moses? Has he not spoken through us as well? And the Lord heard it. That's their issue right there. That's their issue. It's who has the prerogative to speak on behalf of God. The whole marriage thing is just pretext. It's just pretext to get to this real issue of who has the right to speak on behalf of God. We'll skip down to verse 4 here. And suddenly the Lord said to Moses and Aaron and to Miriam, "You three come out of the tent of meeting." Okay, tent of meeting. This is the tabernacle. Okay? Who's allowed in the tabernacle? Consecrated priests. Okay? Aaron is a consecrated priest. Moses, by virtue of being God's prophet, is consecrated. Miriam, not so much. Okay? She's not a consecrated priest. What is she doing in the tent of meeting? That's a definite no-no. Definite no-no. Verse 5. Then the Lord came down in a pillar of cloud and stood at the doorway of the tent, and he called Aaron and Miriam. When they had both come forward, he said, "Hear now my words. If there is a prophet among you, I, the Lord, shall make myself known to him in a vision. I shall speak with him in a dream. Not so with my servant Moses. He is faithful in all my household. With him I speak," and the word here is literally mouth to mouth. Okay, so from his mouth to Moses' mouth, even openly and not in dark sayings, and he beholds the form of the Lord. Why then were you not afraid to speak against my servant, against Moses? The Lord here is settling the authority issue they raised in verse 2. Okay? So, and really firmly. I mean, this really am unambiguous here.
He's basically, I chose Moses. Who the heck are you?
Yeah, I mean, my producers just basically said, the Lord's basically telling Miriam and Aaron, I chose Moses. Who are you? Who are you to question my choice of who I speak through? So, and then you get to verse 9 here, which is, so the anger of the Lord burned against him, and he departed. But when the cloud had withdrawn from over the tent, Miriam was leprous, white as snow. As Aaron turned toward Miriam, behold, she was leprous. Okay, she did two wrongs here. And we find this as a common pattern in the Old Testament, where people are often not punished for committing one act, but if there's a second act that they did that's also wrong, then summary judgment occurs. This is we do this today too. Like, for example, if you're speeding on a highway in the United States, and a cop will follow after you, and then you start easing out the speed, and then you change a lane. Cop has got you. He's got you for speeding and an illegal lane change, and he knows that the judge will basically enforce the ticket because there's two offenses: speeding and the illegal lane change. Okay.
Lots of manufacturers make you rich if you go from 8 to 55.
Yeah. So anyway, there's a double offense here. And that's why judgment is being put on Miriam, because she has done here a double offense. She has usurped Moses' authority, and she's in a place where she shouldn't be, which is inside the tabernacle. So that's why she is being punished with leprosy. Now, eventually, she will be, restored, but that is what's going on here. Is there is a second offense, and that second offense is she's in someplace she doesn't belong, even though she is asserting her authority as someone who spoke in God's name. So anyway, I hope that answered your question. Thank you very much for the super chat. This is a very interesting question. Again, there are exegetes here that really do play the racist card on this one, but it's really not what this passage is talking about. The marriage of the Cushite woman is pretense to the real issue in verse 2. And once you understand the the real issue of what's going on here, the rest of this makes sense. So anyway, thank you very much for the super chat. Very, very much appreciated. Okay. Christian Bensel for €2. Thank you very much for the super chat. Thanks for all your work. Been watching for years. Well, thank you. The channel is now, it's almost 3 years old now. So we haven't been watching that many years. We're still a relatively new channel. But, we're growing rapidly. We just took a look. I took a look at our growth figures over the past year. And, discovered that our channel grew by 66% last year. So that is a phenomenal growth for, a channel kind of as young and as small as ours. So I'm very, very glad you are appreciating the work. For us, this is just a pleasure to be able to come to you and, answer questions, really dig deep into the Bible and, shine a spotlight on the ancient world and how this provides a great context for reading the Bible. So anyway, I want to thank you very much for your support. Thank you very much for the super chats. Very, very much appreciated. And I'm so glad you're getting something out of this. Is that? Okay. Maybe that didn't get updated right. Let me just check that. Okay, looks like that was duplicated somehow. Okay, the next super chat here is from 501 Mobius for $10 US. Thank you very much for the super chat. I just want to make sure I didn't miss one here. Just a second. That always makes me suspicious when that something like that happens. So, just gonna do a quick double check here just to make sure we didn't miss one by mistake. Nope, it's just an accidental duplication. Okay. All right, so our next one here is from 501 Mobius for $10. Thank you very much for the super chat. It's good to see you here tonight. And he asks, if the name Jordan comes down from Dan, how could Abraham and Moses know whether the tribe Dan would settle? Okay. Or was it just a coincidence that the land of Dan was near the source of the river? Okay. Sort of neither. The thing is, when we talk about, say, the city of Dan, that actually predates the tribe of Dan. Okay? So we're talking here that these names are not just unique to regions or persons, but they could be used across a variety of different contexts. We see, for example, like Hebrew names being used repeatedly, and some of these do become place names as well. In the case of Dan, the word Dan in Hebrew means stronghold, fortress. So it makes sense that a big city would be named Dan. So the city of Dan is not named after the tribe of Dan, but it is named after the Semitic word meaning stronghold. So, with that said, Jordan being down from Dan, basically down the river, the Jordan River, would be basically the idea that you're going south along the river from the city of Dan, and really has nothing to do with the tribe of Dan. The tribe of Dan will settle there later on. But that's, again, you're talking here many, many centuries after that fact. So it's more of a coincidence that the tribe of Dan would settle in a proximity nearby there. But even then, they don't stay there. They move. They can't actually settle that land. They can't take that inheritance. They actually go and take Naphtali's inheritance because they can't secure their own. So it was more that the land of Dan, at least what they end up selling is going to be actually pretty far removed from the city of Dan. Although ideally that was supposed to be part of their inheritance, but they never did capture it. Never did capture it. So anyway, thank you very much for the super chat. Very, very much appreciated. But it's more of a coincidence. It's more of a name that two names that are not related. They come from the same etymological roots, but they are not. The tribe of Dan and the city of Dan. That's just coincidence. Okay, false friend. It's a false friend. So anyway, thank you very much for the super chat. Very, very much appreciated. Okay, our next super chat here is from Rorik for $4.99. Thank you very much for the super chat. And he asks, have Egyptologists ever figured out what the set animal is supposed to represent? Okay, the animal that he's talking about here is what's sometimes called in Greek the Typhonian beast. It has this snout that kind of droops forward, and these tall, straight ears that are kind of square on top. It's not a dog. Some have speculated, is it a donkey? No, or a hyena. Nobody knows what it is. Lots of speculation. Some people, as I said, already covered, jackal, hyena, donkey. Some people have even speculated that it might even be a pig. A very, very stylized pig. But no one really knows for sure. We have nothing in the text that will say one way or the other what the Typhonian beast actually is. So we don't actually know what the animal is. It's a cool looking animal. I mean, it's really strange. It's one of the strangest anthropomorphic depictions. The camel leopard says, quote, I sure hope my pigs don't start looking like that. Yeah, if your pigs start looking like the Typhonian beast, you got bigger problems just keeping kosher, I'll say that.
Creation, it's not
Yeah, you do not want your pigs looking like the Typhonian beast. I'll say that. That's not good. Definitely not good. Yeah, so we actually don't know what the Typhonian beast looks like. Was supposed to represent. Again, lots of guesses. No one's sure, and no one's been able to figure it out. So, anyway, I want to thank you very much for the super chat. Very, very much appreciated. And it's a great question. It's a great question, but no one knows for sure. Okay, our next super chat here is from Rorik for $4.99. Thank you very much for the super chat. What is your opinion on the idea that the names Esther and Mordecai come from the Mesopotamian gods Ishtar and Marduk? I have no problem with this. People were naming their children after pagan gods all through biblical history. Samson comes from basically the Mesopotamian sun god Shemesh. It means little sun. It's a pagan name. So, people have been doing this all through history. It's nothing new. Even into the Christian era. We see a lot of people in, say, Coptic Christian Egypt being called Horus. It was really common. So just because somebody is named after a pagan god doesn't mean they're going to be pagan. But Esther being named after Ishtar and Mordecai being named after Marduk would give them plausible deniability on the surface that, that they are not necessarily, maybe they're come from a tradition within, say, that Jewish enclave that, had no problem with local names. So, brick creation, so that's why Samson was bad. Probably didn't help. Yeah, so, there's always going to be these sorts of names that permeate any culture. Why do we still name people after Anglo-Saxon names? Because they just are continual. They're not Christian names per se, but they are continually part of our cultural milieu. It's the same way in Persia. They're in a pagan subculture, and a pagan in an enclave, a Jewish enclave within a broader cultural context. It's no surprise that they would be taking up pagan names. I don't have any problem with this. I think it makes complete sense. So anyway, thank you very much for the super chat. Very much appreciate it. Okay. Top here. Our next super chat here is from 12345 Sushi for $10. Thank you very much for the super chat. Hi, Dr. Fulp. Hello, 12345 Sushi. Are there any good and or contemporary Old Testament ancient Near Eastern scholars who have produced works that you recommend? Who have examined Messianic prophecies, whether pop Messianic Jewish ones or from the New Testament? Well, the ones who generally typically look at Messianic prophecies are generally not Old Testament ancient Near Eastern scholars. They typically are New Testament scholars who do most of this stuff. Now, I could name you good Old Testament ancient Near Eastern scholars, like, for example, John Walton. And I could also name you those who would have really looked at Messianic Jewish prophecies, like D.A. Carson, but he's a New Testament scholar. So you don't usually get the overlap there between the guy who does specifically ancient Near East and Messianic prophecy, because Messianic prophecy is ultimately going to manifest in the New Testament. So those are going to be looked at through the lens of the New Testament. So this is why I would recommend for those who are really looking at Messianic prophecy to look more in the area of New Testament studies than Old Testament ancient Near East, because that's where you're going to get the better work. And I would highly recommend D.A. Carson's work on this sort of stuff. So this is where I would sort of guide you at this point, is look at more New Testament scholars. They're going to be much better versed on this. Okay, so anyway, I hope that helped. Thank you very much for the super chat. Very, very much appreciate it. Okay, Kwame-Adu007 for $5. Thank you very much for the super chat. For the most part, the plagues were natural phenomena that occurred in Egypt. Yes, for the most part. What was the plague of darkness exactly? That one is a little weird. That one's a little weird. Now, we don't know exactly, but we do know it happened previously. It's in one of the Egyptian prophecies. I'm not sure if it's... I think it's Nefertiti that talks about the sun going dark. Okay, so it is something that happened. Now, what made this prophecy is this... they turned all their lights off, obviously.
But it was darkness inside.
Yeah, inside the houses. So that's what's kind of weird about this one, is it's not just darkness outside. It's darkness inside their homes. So this one's kind of weird. Now, I've experienced something that reminded me very, very much of this, which is a sandstorm. Now, sandstorms are, you go through a sandstorm and you see nothing around you but sand. It's weird. If you look up, you might see the little halo of the sun. But everywhere else you're looking, you're seeing sand. Now, you combine this with, say, where there's been a lot of, say, fires, and you get a lot of soot in the atmosphere. You get that soot mixed with sand, and you have that as a storm, and it's dark. It's pitch black. Those sorts of ash sandstorms, ash and sand combination of sandstorms are just they're wicked black. They're wicked black. And you've got the dust from that, say, blowing through your home. I could see where it'd be dark inside the houses. Maybe not in the same way as say outside, but it's going to be pretty close. So there is going to be there are, as I said, it has been reported in Egyptian documents. So it's not the first time that the Exodus event was not the first time it happened. But that's probably the one phenomena that I can think of that would most closely approximate that condition, is that sand and ash storm. So, but the other phenomena that we see as far as the plagues go, most of it is definitely, say, either natural or very close to natural. Hyper natural is how I would describe it. It's not supernatural. It's not, these aren't miraculous events, but they're nature amplified. Nature going full tilt. So anyway, thank you very much for the super chat. I hope that explains it as at least a good working hypothesis of what that could be. Thank you very much for the super chat. Really appreciate it. No, we haven't even gotten there yet. So, we just got through the first few pre-ones. So yeah, we're not close to that quite yet. Oh yeah, these would have dropped off yours already. Okay. Our next super chat here is from KwameAdu007 for $5. Thank you very much for the super chat. If Moses was raised in the household of Ramses I before he became Pharaoh, would that still qualify Moses as a child of the nursery? Yes, it would. It would definitely qualify him as a child of the Kaf. And the Kaf is technically the nursery, but what it really is was a scribal training school. Okay? And it wasn't only the king's children that went to the Kaf. And that's a misnomer. Okay? There were other people that went to the Kaf as well. The sons of scribes were eligible to go to the Kaf. The children of, say, foreign chiefs. Okay, now this one's real interesting. Because when the Egyptians went to Canaan and went on campaign, what they would sometimes do when they conquered a city is they take the son of the king as hostage. But what they would do is they'd bring him back to Egypt and they'd enroll him in the Kaf, in the royal nursery. And there he would learn to read and write Egyptian and become enculturated in all things Egyptian. Then the Egyptians would send him back. And that hostage would be their man on the ground there. Predisposed to do things the Egyptian way. So many people had the option to go to the Kaf. It was not just restricted to the children of the king. So children of viziers would go, children of scribes would go. If you're very high in the priestly caste, yeah, your children could go. So many people had, because this is the place where you learn to read and write. So there were many, many people that went to who were children of the nursery, because it's not a segregated it's not segregated to the royal family. It goes so much far beyond that. It was an institution within Egypt itself. And there was more than one nursery of more than one cough. It's also kind of a misunderstanding. You're going to have the one, of course, in Thebes where the king is, but you're also going to have one at, say, the residence of the viziers, one in Upper Egypt, one in Lower Egypt. You're going to have some in some major cities too, like Memphis, the administration capital of Egypt. So there was more than one Akaf. So it wasn't just one place. Yes, the king's children would be sent there to learn to read and write, but so would a lot of other people. So anyway, I hope that answered your question. Thank you very much for the super chat. Very much appreciate it. Okay, our next super chat here is from Lion Green for $5. Thank you very much for the super chat. Why does God command a food offering? Numbers 28:2. Did the Israelites believe that they were feeding God? Sounds pagan. What should we make of this? Okay, let's take Numbers. Let's do a quick reading of the passage. Numbers 28:2. I'll start verse 1. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Command the sons of Israel, say to them, You shall be careful to present my offering, my food offering, for my offerings by fire, of a soothing aroma to me at their appointed time. Okay. The one thing this isn't, I think we need to be careful about this. They're not feeding the god. Notice here, it's not, he is not eating the food. He's smelling the aroma. Okay? There's nothing in the biblical texts that talks about Yahweh or the Lord eating food offerings. This is not like Egypt. Okay? Egypt, food was presented to the gods to feed the gods. Okay? Of course, then it was recycled, given to the priests, and they distributed the food, but that's a different thing. There is no necessity here that the Lord needs to be fed. And these were not recycled offerings either, in a large respect. In this particular case, the food is actually burnt. So it's an aroma here that's being conveyed, not a digestion. God is not eating the food, he's smelling the smell. He's taking it into his nostrils, as it were. It's an incense. And the incense here is actually not the smell of burning wheat. Okay? Or burning meat. Not much better.
Burning bread.
Yeah, burning bread. Yeah, everyone's favorite. Toast gone a little too far.
Not attractive.
No, not attractive at all. The point here is it's the sacrifice that's producing the aroma, not the food itself. It's not, he is not literally smelling the smoke. Okay? He doesn't have a nose. Okay? He's not really smelling all that smoke like some chain smoking some chain smoker, you know. That's not what's going on here. It's the sacrifice that's producing the urine. It's the act that is pleasing, that act of obedience, not not the actual smoky vapor. Okay? So, it's not pagan. It's not pagan because of, again, this is not an act of where the Lord is eating anything. It's not like Amun-Re. You present your figs to blessed figs to Amun-Re. he's supposed to have, at least in spirit, actually eaten those figs because they were food to the Egyptian gods. This is not like that. This is different. Okay? So that's what we should be making of this, that this is the sacrifice, the act of the offering is the soothing aroma, not the smoke itself. So anyway, I hope that explains what's going on here. Thank you very much for the super chat. Very, very much appreciated. Okay. Our next super chat here is from Addison Weir for $4.99. Thank you very much for the super chat. Help! I'm watching some guy named David Falk. What do I make of this weirdo? Oh, you poor, poor guy. Spending your Friday nights and your hard-earned money watching that weirdo. I think you're beyond help. Honestly. Anyway, thank you very much for that super chat and the laugh. Very much appreciate it. Addison Weir for $4.99. Thank you very much for the super chat. Give us $1,000 and I, David Falk, will binge watch every episode of Ancient Aliens. Oh, that's not worth $1,000, man. I did binge watch it for a while, I'll admit. And, oh, that was painful.
That's too bad.
Yeah, Petui said that's too masochistic. I agree with Petui here. That's way too masochistic. I mean, I got through season 5, I think, before it's just like, I'm screaming at the monitor, make it stop, make it stop! Oh, it was so awful. Yeah, $1,000, no. Won't do it for $1,000, sorry.
Historical gaming strategy, 2,500. Then Addison will pay for you. Danny did that wants it to popcorn to review the whole series. Patriotics.
Here. I think historical strategy gaming has volunteered you. Popcorn review the whole series, Patreon exclusive. It would have to be something like that because A&E Entertainment is just vicious about its copyright protections. Even though this is supposed to be a non-fiction series, they vigorously protect their copyrights. So I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. Alrighty. Yeah, $1,000. Not enough to do something as crazy as that. Sorry. Anyway, thank you very much for the super chat. Very much appreciated. Hate the suggestion. Totally hate the suggestion. Okay, our next, a really, really generous super chat here from Bane Ray for $100. Thank you so much for that really, really generous super chat. Very much appreciate this. Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Falk. Well, thank you so much. I'm so thankful for your content and the cross-denominational community you have built. Here's to the next 100. Well, thank you so very much. That's one of the things we've really been proud of, is the cross-denominational community. You know, we welcome all branches of Christianity to come and participate in this, and even people who are not Christian at all. We know that we have on our channel Muslims, Orthodox Jews, pagans, and they're all welcome. We're all united here just by the purpose of learning about the Bible more and in its original context. So that allows us to open the doors to anyone who's interested in learning. So we're a learning community, and we've struggled really, really hard to not make this to set aside the ideological axis. Okay, we don't want to grind any sort of dogmatic axe. But as I said, sometimes we have to take sides on certain issues of dogma. Okay, that's fair. That happens. But we also want to be respectful to when we do have to do that as well. So, but we have been so thrilled with the community we've built here. It's just, I see them interacting with other people. They're kind, they're generous, they're intelligent, they're readers,
They read books.
They read books. Wow. And, we're excited with what we're building here. We're building here a foundation for the next generation to be able to take the Bible and read it critically. And we love that. We absolutely adore the community we've built here. So anyway, I want to thank you very much for that really generous super chat. Just incredibly generous, and we so appreciate it. It keeps food on our table and keeps this ministry going. So thank you so very much appreciated. Asking Weird for $4.99. And he says, so in that video I sent you, did Dr. Dino prove himself to be the greatest biblical scholar, Egyptologist of all times? Oh, gosh. Kid Hovind, oh my. Oh, dear. Oh, it's so bad. So bad. Wow. Funny bad, yes. It was funny bad, but... Whoa. Gosh, that's awful. I mean, Kent Hovind, when he talks about pyramids, I mean, he must be talking about Bigfoot, because it's the same level.
He used to talk about Bigfoot. I don't know if he still does.
Oh, yeah, he still talks about Bigfoot. Oh, yeah. Well, he still talks about Ron Wyatt. He did a recent...
Ron Wyatt is Bigfoot?
Ron Wyatt is Bigfoot. I think we found it. Ron Wyatt is Bigfoot. Explains so much. Well, I mean, Hovind did a retrospective on the work of Ron Wyatt only like 2 weeks ago. I mean, just like, what, kidding me? Really? Somebody asked, who is Dr. Dino? Ken Ham? No, Kent Hovind. That's who Dr. Dino is. Kent Hovind. Woo. Yeah. Yeah, it's just so bad on so many levels. Not even funny. Not even funny. But it's also hysterical, too. I mean, no historian's going to take Dr. Dino seriously. So anyway, thank you very much for the super chat. Really appreciate it. Ooh.
Did you see Danny's He used to tolerate that level of slander. Bigfoot would never blaspheme dark.
See if I can get that up. That is pretty funny. Oh boy. Yeah. Yeah, not good. Not good at all. See if I can pull that up. It still hasn't come up yet. There we go. Got the new batch here. Danny Dement says, "Sir, I refuse to tolerate that level of slander. Bigfoot would never blaspheme and start a cult." Oh boy. uh, isn't Hovind in jail for abuse of his wife? No, he's out at the moment. He's out at the moment. How long that lasts is anyone's guess. The guy can't stay out of trouble. You know, trouble follows that guy like a stench. It really does. It just, you know, he just can't stay out of trouble. He's always in some sort of scrape with the law.
Stem from the heart.
Yeah.
That's the biblical principle.
Yeah. You know, okay. You can be persecuted for what you believe. I mean, that happens. No question. If you believe something strongly and it's against the culture, people are going to react badly to it. It's another thing to have criminal charges constantly follow you all the time. Does it never stop? I mean, really?
Yeah,
just
Tiger King of Christian.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Daniel Ray says the Tiger King of Christian apologetics. Yeah, pretty much. And on that level of bizarreness too. It's that level of bizarreness as well. You know, it's just crazy, but yeah.
Again, the biblical mandate is give to Caesar what is Caesar.
Yeah.
You pay your taxes.
Yeah.
And Caesar was not a nice guy.
No. So I mean, it's pretty awful, but yeah, that's sort of where things have gotten. Is just, oh, yeah. I can't say it better than that. Yeah, I can't say it better than that. It's just really. Oh.
When we get down to the near end.
All right, let's get back to the next super chat here. So let's see here. We just passed that one. Okay, we're on to brick creation now. For $10. Thank you very much for the super chat. Hi, Dr. Falk. I still remember the first Hebrew word you taught me, sus, horse. Since then learned a lot of Hebrew, enough to read Genesis 1 to 2. Oh, awesome! Bereshit bara Elohim va'et bara Elohim va'et eretz va'et hashemayim. Hebrew's an awesome language, even when I do butcher the pronunciation. Okay. Do you have another Hebrew word a tad more difficult and rare? Okay, yeah, sure. Toevo. Or toeva. Which means abomination. Interesting word. Learn that one. Because knowing that one can help you discern a lot of biblical passages. Like, for example, if something is just, say, disgusting, it's not necessarily toivo. Toivo is the worst thing anything can be in the Hebrew culture. It's abomination. It's the worst of the worst. Okay? So you may have holiness on one side of the spectrum, Kadesh, Kadosh, versus toivo on the other end of the spectrum, abomination. So when you look at passages like don't eat shellfish, it's disgusting, you can look at that Hebrew and go, hey, wait, this doesn't say toivo here. It's just disgusting, revolting. Revolting is not the same as toivo. But you'd be surprised what is toivo. So anyway, that word is more rare. It's a little more difficult. And it will add some very interesting color to your Hebrew reading. So I'm glad you've pursued this. It's wonderful to hear that you're picking up the original languages, because that's going to make you a much better reader of the Bible. So anyway, thank you very much for the super chat, and I hope that helped. Very interesting question. Okay, brick creation for $5. Thank you very much for the super chat. 100. To stop right now and think back on how far you came. What would be the 3 things you're most thankful for? 3 things I'm most thankful for. The prayer support of our subscriber base. Absolutely, we could not have done this without the power of prayer. Absolutely, totally grateful. Grateful to the super chatters. Absolutely thankful for them. We could not have kept doing this without them. And I'll even include the Patreon supporters in that. The people who have donated to this channel to keep it going. Huge part of our income. In fact, the majority of our income now comes from this YouTube channel. So that has helped us, survive. Survive when we probably wouldn't have. There was actually one point where we had come up with a video basically saying, thank you for watching, but we just can't do this anymore because we're out of funds. So, that leads me to the 3rd thing I'm thankful for, which is a great and powerful God who helps us out in the nick of time. Almost never too early, but never too late either. So, that's sort of where our, what we've been thankful for is, the prayer, the financial support, and the God who makes it all possible. So, anyway, I hope that answered your question. That's what I am most grateful for. Thank you very much for the super chat. Really appreciate it. Okay, another super chat here from Brick Creation for $5. Thank you so very much. Any loanwords or textual evidence for dating the latter part of Isaiah 40 to 66 earlier before Cyrus is mentioned? Any recommended scholars on this too? Okay. Here's the thing about Cyrus. You don't actually need this any textual evidence. Now, there could be textual evidence. We do have loanwords from Persian, from Old Iranian in the latter half of Isaiah, I think. But I'm not sure on that exactly. I'd have to look at Noonan's book to know for sure. But the thing with the whole Cyrus reference is you don't actually need any of that. I think here's one of the things that a lot of people misunderstand about the whole Cyrus mention in Isaiah is Cyrus the Great is not the first Cyrus. And I think a lot of people confuse that. And I think this is where the problem lies here when, say, skeptics look at the Cyrus passage and they go, oh, this Cyrus, couldn't have been, has to be a late dating because it's mentioning Cyrus, centuries before Cyrus the Great reigned. Well, Cyrus the Great was Cyrus the Second. He's Cyrus the Second. His predecessor is hundreds of years before and would easily have been consistent with the earlier dating of Isaiah. So, what do we have then? Is basically recontextualization of prophecy. If you want to go down a more materialist road, you don't need a late writing of this to make sense of this in a materialistic way. You can just say, oh, the first prophecy referred to Cyrus the First, but it's an amphibole that when recontextualized actually will, lead you to the idea that it's really talking about Cyrus the Second. So there's actually no need for this to be a later date. But again, I would, for as far as the loanwords or textual evidence here, I'd go to Benjamin Noonan on this. I'd see what he has to say. I haven't read that part of his book, so I cannot really comment on the loanwords stuff. I think there might be some Old Iranian in at least the very, very last chapters, but I'm not sure about the Cyrus passages itself. But again, I'm going off of memory here, so I'm not certain about this. Nevertheless, don't need it. It's not necessary, because you can have the recontextualization of prophecy, as we've seen happen with other prophecies around the ancient Near East. And once you have that tool of recontextualization of prophecy, people are recontextualizing it for their own period of time. So again, for the loan words, I would recommend Benjamin Noonan. See what he says here. For Isaiah 40 to 46, I'd go to I go more conservative on commentaries here for talking about the earlier Cyrus, and you will find some of them will mention Cyrus the First, and that Cyrus the First is contemporary with the original lifetime of Isaiah. So, anyway, I do hope that answers your question. Thank you very much for the super chat. Really appreciate it, and it's a good question. Okay. The next super chat here is also from Brick Creation for $5. Thank you very much for the super chat. Dr. Falk should do a popcorn video about Don Preston and his fully realized eschatology. Scary face. Okay. I don't know anything about Don Preston. But as soon as you start saying the words fully realized eschatology, I start getting a little scared here. Don's theology is out of this world as an aliens. Okay. He's full preterist. Oh boy, now. Yeah, okay, that was fighting words. Yeah, I've got nothing but low opinions for full preterism. I don't think it's orthodox in any way. Assuming that that's correct, that information is correct, that he's full preterist. Yeah, I would really doubt that that's a good contextualized reading of, say, New Testament or even Old Testament prophecy. So, we were thinking about doing a full series on eschatology and the Book of Revelation. We just have not had the time to do it. It's an incredibly time-consuming prospect to do a full teaching series on, say, a book of the Bible. Yeah, Creation, they don't believe our resurrection. Yeah, they don't believe in any resurrection. There's no resurrection of the dead in full preterism. This is it. You're dead. That's it. That's the end of that's the end of the line for you. No second coming of Christ. No resurrection of the dead. No judgment of the believer and the unbeliever. You're done. Yeah, so that's there's no ultimate conqueror death. That's the blessed hope of full preterism. You get to rot in the ground. There's no second coming, though. There's definitely no second coming in full preterism. Okay. Now, partial preterism, yes. Now, we got to make that distinction here between partial preterism and full preterism. There is a distinction between the two. But it's a disembodied, like, for example, full preterism will believe in a disembodied existence in the afterlife. We're supposed to be embodied beings. So because that's the whole point of death. That is the whole point of death is Death is the separation of the body and the soul, and that we are supposed to be embodied beings. So the blessed hope is our re-embodiment. Not like a body like we had before, but like a body as it was intended to be. Like Christ, crucified, resurrected, raised from the dead. If we're not going to be like that, this is not Christianity. This is something else. So, I have some serious problems with full preterism. And it's a problem that you're going to find even with when you try to reconcile that to the creeds of Christianity. It just doesn't play nice with that. So anyway, thank you very much for the super chat. Very, very much appreciated. Recreation for $5. Thank you very much for the super chat. Any Old Testament verses that shows that the Holy Spirit is God? Did the Jews back then think so? And do many today still think so? Genesis 1 to 26. Yes. Okay, those would be some of the examples I would use. Like, for example, in Genesis 1, where the Spirit hovered over the face of the deep. Well, which Spirit? Spirit of God. That would be your Holy Spirit. So, you do get Jews who are divided in opinion over this. There are Jews who say that there are two persons, God the Father and the Holy Spirit. You do get that. Not by all means every Jew. Okay, this is not a widespread opinion by any means, but there are and historically have been Jews that hold to a diunity of sorts. Okay, so there's a diversity of thought within Judaism as to who exactly the Holy Spirit is, what role does he play, and it is going to come down a lot to Genesis chapter 1. Okay, so again, some did back then, some did today, and they are going to largely rest upon Genesis 1 for doing this. So anyway, thank you very much for the super chat. Very, very much appreciated, and I hope that helped. Recreation for $2. Thank you very much for the super chat. Thanks for everything, Dr. Folk. Well, my pleasure. I hope these answers help. I want to thank you very much for the super chats. They really help us keep going here, and we love answering questions. That's why we're here. That's why we do this, is to answer questions. So anyway, I hope this helped. Thank you very much for your support, and we would do this even if we didn't get the super chats, because we wouldn't do it for very long because we'd run out of money. But we would do this anyway because this is what we love to do. Okay, this is our joy. This is what we're passionate about, is answering your questions. Mouthwash for $2. Thank you very much for the super chat. Did you grow your goatee to resemble a pharaonic mask? Does it look like a pharaonic mask?
First I've ever.
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, they're kind of long, thin things. And frankly, most of them are false. Okay, Egyptians didn't grow beards; they shaved their face clean and then wore a false beard. Okay, so they didn't wear. I mean, their beards weren't real. No, I grew my beard because basically the week of my honeymoon. I mean, when I got married, I was clean shaven, totally clean shaven, and I had come down with pneumonia in the first week of my marriage. Okay, on my honeymoon, I contracted pneumonia, and I was sick. I was really sick, and I decided not to shave for a couple weeks. Okay, and my wife goes, she says, I'm about to. I've recovered. 2 weeks after I've recovered from the pneumonia, and I'm ready to shave it all off. And she says, "Oh no, you don't." She liked the goatee, so it was like, okay, I'm not gonna say no to her. So that's why I have the goatee, is because she likes it. Okay, she likes it. I'm not gonna argue with her. That's the end of it.
Beards are longer.
Well, Assyrian beards are big and bushy. I mean, they're big, bushy beards.
Mountain.
Yeah, they're kind of mountain men beards. Yeah, you're asking the real questions now.
Doctor was once shaven.
Yes, it's true. I was once clean shaven, and I was into right through my 20s. I was so yeah. I think the beard's a better look. Beards are, yeah. And my wife agrees, and she's the most important most important opinion here. Okay, let's get back to the questions. Let's see where we got.
Regal indeed.
Regal indeed, if not Pharaonic. I like that. Okay, let's see. Where are we here? Okay, there we are. Mouthwash here. Another one from Mouthwash here from for $2. Thank you very much for the super chat. You'd rather live under Khufu or Justin Trudeau? Ooh. Ooh, not a great choice. I decline to answer that question on the grounds that it could end me up in a Canadian gulag. Okay? Either choice here is not good. Not good. We'll leave it at that, okay? So anyway, thank you very much for the Mouthwash responds, I spent $2 on it, you goon. You're trying to get me sent to a Canadian, a Nineveh prison. I mean, come on. Hey, political opinions, especially the ones that get me sent to penitentiaries in Nunavut, are kind of verboten here. Re-education camp, yeah, that's about it. All right, that was fun. Anyway, thank you very much for that $2 super chat. Very much appreciated. All right, let's get back to our track here. Here, still way up here. Okay. Well, yeah. The graffiti under Khufu was better than under Justin Trudeau. Much better propaganda. Yeah, I'll give you that one. Okay. Our next super chat here is from David Bond for $10. Thank you very much for the super chat. Dr. Falk, congrats on 100. Well, thank you very much. I have some interest in the question of usury. Ooh, complicated question. How common was interest in the ancient Near East around the time of the Pentateuch? Actually, quite common. It does seem to have been practiced across several cultures. Were the Israelites unique in their standards regarding it? Okay. Not really. And the question of usury seems to often boil down to. Well, actually, you know what? I think we'll take the next few questions because we're going to cover all of it, I think. So we're going to take the next couple super chats as well from David here because I think that will actually. Okay. He also asks for a $5 super chat. Again, thank you. Was the injunction against usury a blanket ban or just in reference to a particular circumstance? Yes. In a sense, yes. Was it over and beyond extortion? Yes. Jesus' admonitions, Luke 6:35. Does the parable of the talents have any bearing? No. We'll get into the reason why. And his final one here is for $10. Thank you again for the super chat. Would the changing of this doctrine of interest in usury for the church be more permissive, be analogous to changing other doctrines based on changing circumstance of culture or economics? Yes, that too. Okay. A lot of issues here. But we're going to try to take these kind of swallow the elephant whole here. Because if we swallow the elephant whole here, it makes, we're going to be touching on a whole lot of other things here at once, okay? Now, there is records of interest being charged for lending things, not just money. We have to understand that money was, a lot of what we understand as interest today is part of that fiat currency economy. Now, fiat currency was not something you had in the Bronze Age. So people didn't have money back then. They basically bought things by weight of metals or by barter. Okay. So when money was lent in the days of the Pentateuch, it was often lent as a weight of a metal. So the standard that the Israelites used had to go with the circumstances of the people you were lending it to. If you were lending it to a brother, fellow tribes member, fellow clan member, there was this expectation that you were not going to try to make a profit on their suffering. Okay? Because there's an injunction to, there's also a general prohibition, or at least an ethic, within the Old Testament not to borrow. So people didn't borrow frivolously. They aren't whipping out a credit card here and buying a big screen TV. Okay? They're borrowing by necessity. They're borrowing because their crops failed and they need money to get new seed and to survive. So that's a lot of the circumstances that underlied Bronze Age borrowing. Okay, so instead of there being welfare, you would borrow from your neighbor to make it through the winter. So,
following spring and harvest wasn't better. Everything.
Yeah.
Which is why years.
Yeah. Basically, if you lost everything and if the next spring wasn't good and you couldn't pay back that debt, you had to sell yourself into slavery. So the consequences of this are particularly dire. So if you lent your neighbor and you charged them exorbitant interest, that contributed to how quickly somebody ended up being enslaved. it, at least until the year of Jubilee. Now, this prohibition did not extend to, say, the Gentile, because there wasn't the same sort of consequences for lending it to the Gentile.
But I didn't know.
They didn't own land. So there's a difference here between the circumstances that's involved. The Israelites were unique in that respect, that you were not supposed to charge exorbitant interest. Now, with the invention of fiat currencies and inflation, money doesn't retain its value. So there's that other aspect of this as well, which is that economies themselves have changed since the Bronze Age. Okay, so we're going to flip back to this one here. So we just covered that previous super chat. So it does reference the circumstance, okay? Because nobody would be, I mean, a poor person would not be lending to a rich person. It'd be just, a person of, say, maybe means, or maybe of your neighbor, lending to someone who's in worse circumstances than you. So that's the general situation under which these lending laws apply. Yeah, it was over and beyond extortion in that it was meant to, you're taking advantage of somebody's dire circumstances that they may not be able to pay off. Okay. As far as the parable of the talents is basically a master, giving money to his servants to use on his behalf. Those servants don't own the money, and they're not lending the money. They're being sent with a purpose in mind. Okay? So it's sort of apples and oranges here to the whole issue of usury. Okay? So the parable of talents does not apply. So it's not that the master in the king in the parable of talents is lending money that people are asking for, but more along the lines that they are being given an allocation to use for the purposes of the master. The intent is to invest. The intent is to take risks. The intent is to generate more money from the money you're given. Okay? So, and ultimately it acts as a test. Test to see if you're a faithful and good servant. So, it's not the same as what's going on with the usury laws. So, with that said, in today's economy, where money loses its value every year, it's not, you can't use, say, a replacement theory like you could back then. Back then, someone loans you 100 shekels of silver. All you have to do is be able to gather 100 shekels of silver back, and you've repaid the loan in full. That currency has not diminished anything in value because what you lended was a physical item, not the perceived value behind the item. Now, kind of not true, it's stretching the point here, but same thing, somebody lends you 3 bags of grain. You return 3 bags of grain, paid in full. Those bags of grain aren't worth less when you return it than when you were loaned it. It's not true with fiat currency. Fiat currencies become less valuable the more you mint of it. The more you make fiat currencies, they become less valuable. Inflation. So every year, a fiat currency is going to become less and less valuable, unless you have deflation, and that has its own horrors. So, in the case of fiat currencies, it's often when like, for example, if you loan somebody some amount of money, say $100, and he pays you back $105. Okay, whether or not he had to. oftentimes for tax purposes, that's not considered to be a profit because of the amount of inflation involved. You're actually getting back the value of the money when you lent it. So in a lot of states, a 5% or less lending rate is sometimes not considered to be usury or making a profit through lending. There was a time when a good friend lended me $2,000 to make it through my doctoral degree, essentially, because we were short on cash. And when I returned the money, I added a 5% premium because, I understand that, if I didn't do this, I wouldn't be paying it back value in kind. So I voluntarily added more to my repayment of the loan, just because I was paying full value back. That's not, even though it's technically lending with interest, it's not usury. Because usury is making a profit at the expense of somebody else. Covering the costs of inflation is not taking advantage of anyone. It's restoring what the lender gave you. So that's one of those changes in economics, culture, that sort of thing, that will affect how we view, say, interest and usury. Okay? So, wrapping all this up, okay? It is highly based, the whole doctrine of usury and interest is highly based upon circumstances. Are you lending to somebody who's wealthy? Are you lending to someone who's poor? Is the consequence of them not paying it back? Is that going to end them up? Are you going to end up enslaving a brother as a result? Is it going to end up where, if interest isn't charged, that the lender is going to, take advantage of the lendee? The person who gives the loan, is he, you as a person who's lending something, you can't hide behind the doctrine of interest just to pay less in value in the future. Because that's a form of theft too. We have to realize that's a form of theft, where people may lend a bunch of money and pay it back at the original value that they lent it, original denomination of the sum that they originally lent, and said, hey, okay, 20 years later, it's paid in full. You lent me $1,000 20 years ago, I paid you back $1,000 now, so we're done. Yeah, that money's changed a lot in value in 20 years. It's probably worth half of what it was originally. So that can be a kind of theft too. So this doctrine can get really complex real fast. And you've asked a lot of questions on it, and we've tried to cover it all by, as I said, trying to eat the elephant whole here. So anyway, with that said, thank you very much for all those super chats. I hope we covered this adequately. It's a complex topic with a lot of economic and historical factors involved here. So anyway, thank you very much for those super chats and those questions, and very, very much appreciated. Okay. Wow. That one was tough. Okay. Okay, I'll admit. That one was a tough. It wasn't a stumper, but there was just so much going on there. So much going on there.
Unfortunately, he did multiple.
Yeah, fortunately he did multiple super chats, and a big subject. Yeah, that was very considerate, and I really do appreciate you doing multiple super chats on that. But big question. Big question. And one that still is actually applicable today, and that's what I like about this too, is I like this question on usury because it still applies today. So, great question, wonderful question, but boy, tough one to answer in a short segment. Okay, our next super chat here is from Aston Weir for $1.99. Thank you very much for the super chat. There's no such thing as YouTube. Well, I hope that's not true. Otherwise, I'm wasting my time here.
Are we a figment of his imagination, or is he a figment of ours?
I don't know. I'll ask the question. Are we a figment of his imagination, or is he a figment of ours? That's a answer. Addison, I think, needs the question. You know, we're all in your head.
Why not both?
Why not both? Yeah, it could be. It could be both. Let's see here. There we go. We're all in your heads. Could be. Could be. It's very possible. We could be both, in his head and he's in ours, or, stuff could happen. Strange stuff. Anyway, thank you for that cheeky super chat. Okay. All right, next one. Let's see here. Where are we here? Way back. Come on. All right. Okay. Another super chat from Addison Weir for $4.99. This is what David Falk reading a super chat looks like. Yep, pretty much. Nailed it in one. Thank you for the super chat. Okay, Billy Ningen for $10. Thank you very much for the super chat. Good evening, Dr. Falk. Consider this logic. Sure, I'm more than happy to evaluate a logical argument. We are the living image of God, idol of the living God. Okay? Man-made idols are non-living, therefore, neither are the gods. Would this logic contrast divine counsel? It would, but it would also be an equivocation fallacy. Okay? You're using here living and living image in living in two different ways. Okay? So it would be an equivocation fallacy. So it wouldn't actually logically follow, because you're using idol and gods in two different ways. Okay, and I kind of get where you want to go with this, but this is this argument is, this syllogism is not validly structured. Okay, and as I said, it contains an informal fallacy. Idols and gods are not the same, and you're using the definition in two different ways. So that definitely would qualify as an equivocation fallacy. So the logic doesn't follow, and even if it did follow, it would still be a problem with a divine counsel. So, yeah, I think the argument isn't sound. The argument's not sound. So, you would have to rework this syllogism to make it valid. So anyway, thank you very much for the super chat. Very much appreciated. Okay, the next super chat here is from, let's see if I get, okay, if I butcher this, please forgive me. En Japones con Rafi. Hope I got that right or close. Please don't hurt me if I got it wrong. I'm so terrible with pronunciations. but for $5. Thank you very much for the super chat. Really appreciate it. And he asks, what do we currently know about Gibeon, Joshua 9:17? I heard that evidence points to it being founded well after the Bronze Age. I'd have to look into this. I don't know the archaeological status at Gibeon at the moment. It's possible it's post Bronze Age, but depends on which part of the structure too. We do have evidence of cities sometimes moving. Like, for example, we have that happened at Migdol, where the actual foundations have moved several times. So, just because, it also happened at Pithom. So that's a second city where it's happened to. So just because one site dates to, say, the Bronze Age doesn't mean it wasn't somewhere nearby a little earlier. So again, I'd have to look into the archaeological reports for Gibeon, but I wouldn't exclude it being Bronze Age just simply based upon, say, just a single site excavation. There could be a reason why. So again, I hope that helps. We have seen this already with some other cities where the site location moved. So again, happens in ancient cities, could happen here too. So anyway, thank you very much for the super chat, and I hope that helped. Very, very much appreciate it. Okay, Billy Ningen for $5. Thank you very much for the super chat. Have you ever encountered the works of Kenneth Griffith from Answers Research Journal, AIG? If so, what were your thoughts on his A&E scholarship? Jeez. Oh boy. Ugh. All right, let's deal with Answers Research Journal to begin with. It's a young Earth creationist supposed academic journal. The editor of it is Snelling. It's very young Earth creationist. It's an attempt to bring serious scholarship to young Earth creationism. The problem is a lot of the articles are terrible. And Andy Griffith. Kenneth Griffith. It's oh man, some of the stuff he does is just jacked. He basically holds to the supremacy of Usher chronology. Are you joking? I mean, the whole 4,000-year-old Earth or 4,000 BC data creation and everything. I mean, he's a Usher maximalist. Was it peer reviewed by Gomer Pyle? It might as well have been. Oh my gosh, it's so bad. It's so bad. Let me give you an example here if I can find it quickly here. Let's see here. Where did I find this here? See if I can find this quickly. I mean, some of the stuff he's written on is just crazy, just crazy. Oops. Okay. Now, he writes in this article that he did for Answers Research Journal, and I saw this little passage in there, and I just went, oh my gosh, this is horrible. He goes, and quote, not a few Christian archaeologists, historians, and organizations. Actually, what I'll do is I'll actually post this on the screen. I'll do the window capture here, so you can all see what I'm reading. All right, properties. Yeah, well, there we go. Okay. So I'll make it so that you can all see what I'm reading here. All right. All right, a second paragraph. Not a few Christian archaeologists, historians, and organizations have embraced the Septuagint, that's the LXX, as the true record of the original chronogenealogies of the Bible. Who does he cite here? ABR, Associates for Biblical Research, 2019. Gertot. Gertot is a fringe chronologist. Absolute fringe. And Rudd. OMB. This is your Christian historians, archaeologists, and organizations, ABR, Gertot, and Rudd. I mean, Rudd has no qualifications in the field at all. And Gertot is so fringe on this. This is not even funny. Wow. This is the level of scholarship that comes from Kenneth Griffith. Is really it's so poorly researched, and it's so wacky. When's this from? Okay, it is from. Let me grab that for you here. This article is called. Actually, I'll put this up here for you. Get into the window capture again. Oops. Okay. This is his let's see here. This was his work, Chronological Framework of Ancient History, Part 1, Problem Data and Methodology, by Kenneth C. Griffith and Darrell K. White, published November 16th, 2022. Okay? There's no excuse for this. This is recent. This is really recent. Okay? So, yeah, that's very recent. It's like less than 6 months old, around 6 months old. I mean, this is bad. This is really bad. So we're not talking about something that is early in the history of the journal. This is recent. Gosh, doesn't it? Yeah, that's not good. Gosh, makes Ron Wyatt sound like a noble laureate. Well, anyone who's an usher maximalist these days is just, I mean, you gotta be kidding me. This is cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. It's just crazy. So, put it simply, no, I'm not taking this guy seriously at all. And there's Answers Research Journal still has credibility gaps, incredibly wide credibility gaps that I think have still make it a laughable source. Now I wouldn't mind it. I have no opposition to a young Earth creationist group attempting to do an actual honest to goodness peer-reviewed journal that really does actually listen to its peer reviewers, gets qualified peer-reviewed people who peer review it, and go with that. Mm-hmm. I have done peer review work for young Earth creationist journals. I'm not a young Earth creationist myself. Okay? But I've done peer-reviewed work for them. And I have no problem telling them, when an article is going to fail and when it's going to, bring ridicule upon them. And to their credit, most of the time they've gone with basically however I've adjudicated.
And
So
a true scholar will listen to that
yeah.
criticism. I mean, I got told by Hofmeister when I quoted Butch,
Yeah.
it's obsolete.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. So now sometimes I've had to explain why to an editor why I would reject an article. Okay? But once I explained it, most of the time that editor will say, yeah, okay, I get it. I get why this is a problem. So I have nothing against a young earth creationist organization trying to do a peer-reviewed journal publication. I have no problems with this. But, Egyptology is, and then their Answers Research Journal is doing a lot of stuff on Egyptology, on ancient Egypt. You better have some Egyptologists who are actually qualified to do your peer review and just be able to sniff this stuff out. Because otherwise it's going to make you look like an idiot and it's going to look badly on your journal. And I think this is not a good look. This is not a good look if you want credibility as a peer-reviewed journal. So, so bad. So bad. No, nobody should be using Usher anymore in a serious manner. Maybe as a historical curiosity, but that's it. Especially since Usher wasn't even accepted in his own time. That's the other thing we have to keep in mind that with Bishop Usher is, he's basing his work on Scaliger. And all of that is based upon lunar tables, Islamic lunar tables. Nobody is accepting that as evidence. Almost instantly, as soon as Usher published his chronology, it was already contested. And they never did get past it. So I think that's very problematic if you're going to be an Usher maximalist. Especially since there's mistakes in Usher too. Some really serious mistakes in Usher. Like, for example, how old Abraham was when, or how old Terah was when Abraham was born. Usher gets the wrong answer here, based on a sloppy reading of Genesis 11 and 12. So, with that said, I've got some problems here with both Griffith and Answers Research Journal. So anyway, thank you very much for the super chat. Very much appreciate it, and I hope that explained it. Okay, our next super chat here is from N Japanese Konrafi for $5. Thank you very much for the super chat. How does the idea of biblical inerrancy should be understood, assuming it is an idea to be embraced? Does it have limitations? Say a copyist error. Yes, absolutely. And this is a big topic too. Okay, I'm not going to be able to do this complete justice here, so just keep that in mind. The doctrine of inerrancy essentially says that what the inspired writer wrote was inerrant in the autographs. Okay, now there's going to be a lot of limitations here. Okay, it applies primarily to autographs. Okay, it does not apply to the copies. It does not, and there's going to be certain criticisms that devolve around this. Essentially, what it is, we have to understand the doctrine of inerrancy. It's not making a testable argument. It's a religious dogma. And you have to understand that on that level. Okay? So they're making a claim of inerrancy in the autographs in order as a religious foundation. So it's a prima facie kind of argument. It's a foundational argument. It's not that they're concluding it's inerrant. So we have to understand that. The other thing is that it doesn't apply to copies. So a copy can contain copyist errors. So the doctrine of inerrancy does not apply to the copies. However, and this is, again, one of the criticisms of the doctrine of inerrancy is that we don't have the autographs. We only have the copies. How do you try to determine what the autographs are going to say? And of course, the pushback here is, well, you can use lower text criticism to figure out roughly, with some pretty good precision in most cases, what the autographs would have said. You're not going to be perfect about that, but that's sort of where the dogma is going to go on this. So we have to kind of say, okay, it's not treated like an argument. If you treat it like an argument, it's going to collapse, because it's not an argument. It's a dogma. It's a religious belief. So whether or not you accept it is a lot of times going to come from what faith tradition you come from. Now, there's a whole lot of, how to say this, loaded ideas just in that. The idea of inerrancy actually does, even though it's been fully embraced by most Protestant denominations, didn't originate with Protestantism. It was actually a Roman Catholic dogma. So if you're Eastern Orthodox, you might not accept this, and it might not matter to you. Okay? But on the other hand, Roman Catholicism has kind of had a love-hate relationship with it. It invented the dogma. It embraced it for centuries. And then with the Counter-Reformation, it kind of stepped back from it. So, and I think in some respects they're getting back to that idea of inerrancy, but it's something they've had they walked back from, and now they're walking back towards again. So whether or not you embrace it is, a lot of it's going to come from your faith tradition ultimately. So that's sort of the answer to your question here. Is it should be understood in terms of the autographs. It is the idea that whatever the Bible asserts to be true is true. So basically, for example, it's going to be a faithful record. And that's probably a better way of putting this, is that inerrancy is actually, what it means is it's a faithful record. Okay. So whatever the Bible asserts to be true is true. That doesn't mean that everything recorded in the Bible is true. And here's the difference here. If the Bible records somebody lying or misspeaking, like a dictaphone, it's going to record what that person spoke if it is factually untrue or a lie. Okay? As a faithful record. So inerrancy has more to do with the faithful record than it actually does whether or not there's actual any errors. Because sometimes there are errors as a result of human malfeasance or ignorance. I'll give you a couple concrete examples here. For example, Jephthah, he makes several mistakes in his speech, or his letter to the Ammonites in Judges 11. Okay, it's not that he's intentionally lying; he's just ignorant. The lying prophet in 2 Kings, who basically says to the nameless prophet, "Hey, God told me to come to my house and eat dinner. Yeah, God told you not to eat here, but I got another word from God, and you can trust me because I'm a prophet." No, he lied, and the Bible faithfully records him lying. So that happens. So with all that said, there are circumstances where people do lie, and the Bible does record it. The sexual violation of Tamar, where her half-brother basically tells her he's ill. He's lying. to seduce her and to get her into his bedchamber. Okay, so the Bible is a faithful record of what is said and what is done, but not everything said and done is 100% the truth. It's what the Bible asserts to be true that is true. So we have to understand that about inerrancy. It's making the claim that whatever the Bible asserts is true in its autograph. So it does have a lot of limitations. And because of that, it's also subject to those sorts of criticisms too, such as, we don't have the autographa. We also have to interpret the Bible to understand what the Bible asserts. Well, as soon as you interpret something, you have an interpretation, and no interpretation is infallible or inerrant. So there's a bit of circularity in it as well. But then again, too, it is not meant to be an argument. It's meant to be a foundational dogma. Because it's a foundational dogma, it's in some ways exempt from those self-referential rules. So understanding that, again, it going to boil right down to what's your faith tradition here? Whether or not you accept it and the reasons why you accept it. So anyway, I hope that answered your question. Thank you very much for the super chat. Really appreciate it. And it's something we are working on a video to better explain. So hopefully that video will come out in the next several weeks. So anyway, thank you very much for the super chat. Very, very much appreciated. Okay, billing in for $5. Thank you very much for the super chat. Dr. Falk, I know Genesis 1 to 11 can be tricky. Well, yes, especially if you try to take it all 11 chapters at once. Very tricky. But I can't help but ask, does Genesis 10, 21 to 31 and 11:8 confirm that Shem's descendants settled in Yemen? All right. Let's take a look at those passages. So, Genesis 10, verses 21 to 31. And also to Shem, the father of the children of Eber, and the older brother of Japheth, the children were born. The sons of Shem were Elam, and Ashur, and Arpachshad, and Lud, and Aram. And the sons of Aram were Uz, and Hul, and Gether, and Mash. All right, and goes on here. I'll go to 30. Okay, and continue with 26 here. And Joktan became father of Almadad, and Shelef, and Hazar Mavath, and Jerah, and Hadoram, and Uzal, and Dikla, and Ubal, and Abimaal, and Sheba. Okay, that's definitely on the Arabian Peninsula right there. And Ophir, and Havilah, and Jobad. Again, these are going to be locations in Mesopotamia and the Saudi Peninsula. All these were sons of Joktan. Now, their settlement extended from Ashah as you go towards Sefer, hill country to the east. These are sons according to the families, according to their languages, by their lands, according to their nations. Okay. Now, there are going to be descendants of Shem that do settle in the Saudi Peninsula. Okay, and they are recognized culturally as being Semitic people. We have to understand that Semitic peoples are, at least in a biblical anthropological point of view, seen as descendants of Shem. Now, we have to understand that Genesis 10 is not trying to give you one-to-one descendancy. What it is trying to do is it's trying to give you a cultural anthropology of how Israelites viewed the settlement of the world. Okay? That may not actually be, as I say, a one-to-one correspondence with actually how people descended, but how they viewed it in the wider context of what they understood. So, prima facie, it does confirm this. on the other hand, too, we also have to be careful that we aren't confusing a cultural anthropology with a genetic descent, because they're two different categories, and the Bible is not trying to make that claim. I'll just read Genesis 11 here, verse 8, just to round it off. So the Lord scattered them abroad from there over the face of the whole earth, and they were stopped building the city. Okay. But yeah, a lot of Shem's descendants would have ended up in Semitic regions. You do find them. You have that whole sort of Semitic language tree that sort of branches out from Mesopotamia. So I think there's enough warrant to say, yeah, okay, Yemen, descendants Shem, sure. I think you can make that case. Given that the tribes are mostly speaking Western Semitic dialects. So anyway, I think we can probably say, yeah, pretty much. I think, but again, Genesis 10 is a cultural anthropology, not a genetic descent. So let's just be careful about that. And if you just sort of keep that in mind as you are looking at this, you could probably make a decent case for that. All right? So, thank you very much for the super chat. Very, very much appreciated. Okay, our next one here is from Daniel Wright for $10. Thank you very much for the super chat. How did ancient Egyptians view sheep? How does Exodus 8:26-27 play into this? Okay. It views it a couple ways. Now, they're going to make distinctions between various types of sheep. Okay. Early in Egyptian culture, Egyptians raised sheep. Okay. They raised sheep and they raised goats, and they didn't have a problem with that. This is going to change in the Middle Kingdom, when Egyptians are going to establish more and more waterways, and the chance of, say, polluting those waterways increases with the agriculture. And it's at that point that people become much more sensitive to this. And we see this, for example, in the prophecies of the Middle Kingdom, where there's a turning away from people raising sheep. Yeah, it's still done, but it's seen as something that Semitic cultures, tribal cultures do. And that it destroys waterways. So there's always going to be that. And yet, too, we also have evidence now that, for example, rams, which is a kind of sheep, a male sheep, but a specific breed of it, were raised for types of sacrifice and mummification, as basically to the god Amun-Re. So they were more concerned, the Egyptians were much more concerned with the raising of sheep than they were about the sacrifice of it, but it did take that view of it being unclean. So that view of uncleanliness is going to transfer over into the late Bronze Age, where by the time of the Exodus, Egypt had pretty much become a beef-eating culture. It became a beef-eating culture. It also was still concerned a lot of fish and fowl, particularly ducks and geese. Okay, so it's not the idea here is they're not going to be able to say sacrifice a ram, because that's going to be seen as blasphemous. Okay, they're not going to be able to do that. And other sheep are going to be seen as unclean. So that's going to be a problem too. So there's going to be some real issues when it comes to the whole sort of, hey, we got to go sacrifice sheep to our God. So, where you've got, say, Exodus 8 here. Exodus 8, 26-27. But Moses said, "It is not right to do so, for we shall sacrifice to the Lord our God. What is an abomination? There's that interesting word we saw earlier on, toevo. Okay? It's an abomination to the Egyptians. If we sacrifice what is abomination to the Egyptians before their eyes, will they not stone us? We do know that when Israelites did certain religious practices, it caused riots. It happened at Elephantine. So the Israelites, while they lived in Egypt, weren't free to do just any old sacrificial practice. They had to, in some sense, to keep the peace, follow what Egyptians found to be kosher, and sheep was not among them. So I think it's very clear here that they're reflecting the practices of the time. So yeah, it's really gonna depend upon which variety of sheep and the specific cultists involved. But in general, they were not viewed as clean animals. Not viewed as clean animals, and just, yeah, verboten. They were verboten, especially by the time you get to the New Kingdom. It's just the whole culture had changed. The whole culture had changed, and a lot of that had to do with agricultural practices. So anyway, thank you very much for the super chat. Really, very much appreciate it, and I hope that helped. We are hitting 11 o'clock now, and we've still got a lot of super chats to go here, so we're going to try to rush it a little bit here, because I don't want the 6-hour marathon for the 100th. Sorry, Historic Strategy Gaming. So we're going to try to move this along a bit here. Okay. Aston Weir for $4.99. Thank you very much, Super Chat. Sponsoring for a non-super chat, but only if it's answered by Mr. Empty Conjecture. Ooh, see here. What can we see here for a non-super chat that we can sponsor? Let's see. Will subscribers get a 75%? Well, your subscribers get a 70% discount on your book. No. Now, we might make some special offers for our Patreon subscribers, but, regular subscribers, no.
You don't get.
Yeah, here's the thing. I don't have any control over how much discount somebody gets on the book, okay? That's all controlled by the publisher. I have no control over that at all. And
the bulk of it, 2/3 of the price goes to the bookstore.
Yeah, and the fact is, the way that most of this, at least the way that a breakdown of a cost of a book goes, is that most of it goes to the bookstore. And the bookstore is free to basically slash down their margin. This is why Amazon can offer sometimes 40% discounts, is because they've been able to negotiate that they get half off of a book. So the lowest they're going to go to still make any money at all is 40%. So that's why a 70% off of a book is almost never going to happen. Almost never going to happen, because that's just they're basically paying you then to take their book, essentially. So so that's why you'll never see a discount like that on a book, especially a new book. Okay. Now, once a book goes out of print and they're buying overstock, then sometimes you can see those prices. But you will almost never see those prices on a book that has anything to do with Egypt or the ancient Near East. And one of the reasons why is because this is a weird phenomenon. But books on ancient Egypt go up in price once they're out of print, and sometimes crazy up. Like some of the books that were published by Kenneth Kitchen are now worth thousands of dollars because they're out of print now. I mean, it's really phenomenal how much those books are worth now. Just like for example, there's another one like who was it that wrote that? Death, God of Confusion is the name of the book. It's a terrible. I mean, the binding on it's awful. It's looks like it was done on a typewriter. Terrible publication standards. When it first came out, it was something like $60. Today, that book is over $8,000 if you can even get your hands on a copy. And it's still a horribly published book. I mean, the book's good. I mean, the book was an amazing book, but it's just terribly published. Even Gardner's what's it called now? Egyptian Grammar. It's now been out of print it was in print by Oxford University Press by many years. I mean, like almost 50 years. So it had a good long run. But they stopped finally. They finally put that out of print, and the value of those books have now skyrocketed to about $500. So yeah, any book on ancient Egypt is just going to go crazy up in price once it gets out of print. Just crazy out of price. I mean, the price will skyrocket. So any book on ancient Egypt, you'll almost never get a 70% discount, even in the used market. So if you're really lucky, you might find a special deal at like something place like Half Price Books. But it'd have to be a full moon on a Tuesday when all the planets are in perfect alignment kind of situation.
This is why going to
Yeah. Well, this is why also too that a lot of people buy their books at like academic conferences too, because it's the best price you're going to usually get on a book.
There's no bookstore.
Yeah, because there's no bookstore. The publisher is free to discount it as much as they can just to get it moving and get people more. And it's just one of those things that is just Ben Ray says, invest in Dr. Falk's books. It's not a bad idea, honestly. Invest in Egyptology books. You will always make your money back. Okay. I'm not giving financial advice, but if not,
yeah, if we had money, we'd invest in your book.
But yeah, it will, especially if it's published with a company that doesn't publish things forever. And most presses will not. Oxford University Press, they'll publish forever. Practically. But a lot of publishers, stop publishing a book after several years when the sales start declining. And then the prices skyrocket. It's just a crazy, interesting phenomena about books on ancient Egypt. So, anyway, there's the sponsored question. We had Mr. Empty Conjecture give an original response, and then we did pad it out. And we always like seeing our little green friend here. Good. Okay. So, let's get back here to where we were at. Because I know we are... Okay. All right, there's the next one here from 1000 Clever Boy for $5. Thank you very much for the super chat. What do ancient Egyptian writings tell us about the literary genre in Genesis 1 to 11? Any interesting implications? Well, we do. I don't know if how much ancient Egyptian writings specifically will tell us about the literary genre of Genesis 1 through 11, except that it does seem to be consistent with a lot of the literary genres we do find in ancient Egypt. Like, we do find, say, mythological writings in Egypt. Um, it's hard to answer that question because the literary genre of Genesis 1 through 11 is probably best described as mytho-history. We do have um, some things in Egypt that do resemble that, but not in the same way as we find in Genesis 1 through 11. Now, with that said, however, we do also have, say, various tales in Egypt that do have those mythological elements. So, especially creation myths. You have the canoe myth, where they're building mankind on out of clay on a potter's wheel. You have the Memphite theology. So there are elements there, but it's more along the lines of elements than you say large literary compositions. Now, that does beg the question of, was Genesis 1 through 11 originally a single literary composition, or was it several literary compositions that was edited together, strung together as a single book later on? That's an open question. So-called supplementary hypothesis would get very close to that. So, Jack Ray, okay. Let's see. Okay. So anyway, it's a very complicated question because the whole thing about genre, we do find almost every genre that's in the Bible in Egyptian literature somewhere. Poetry, prophecy, narrative, war annals, mythology. There's so much. The various genres that we do find in the Bible, including Genesis, are found all over the place in Egyptian literature. So it's not an easy question to ask because it is a very broad question. It's in some ways it's an overly broad question. So but again, we find it all. We find it all in the Pentateuch. All the genres we find in the Pentateuch, we've also find in Egyptian literature, almost without exception. In fact, I can't think of. I mean, we even find even obscure genres like temple dedication inscriptions. That's found. So there's these little tiny, say, micro genres. There's an interesting thing. If anyone ever wants to do a good doctoral dissertation, that would be a brilliant one. The idea of micro genres, basically small genres, like we find, as I said, temple dedication inscriptions are one. The recording of plaques. Like Hezekiah's tunnel. These sorts of things would be very, very interesting if someone decided to explore that issue on the doctoral level. So there is a lot of work still to be done on this. A lot of good work to still be done on this. So anyway, that's about all I'm going to say about this. Thank you very much for the super chat. Very much appreciated. And there are interesting implications, but again, this is a work in progress. More people need to do work on this, and I think there's a lot more that can be done on this. So with that said, thank you very much for the super chat, and thank you for the question. Okay. Okay, let's see what we got here too. All right. And I cannot pronounce this because I cannot read this. So, thank you, JP, for $2. Thank you for the super chat. thoughts about authorship and dating of Job. Okay. I think that the dating of Job is Iron Age. Probably Iron Age 2 is where I'd probably place it. It does make several references to things that are definitely Iron Age, like Arameans. I think it's not a domestic Israelite. The author is unknown. I don't think it was produced domestically in Israel, at least not in the Judean foothills. But I think it's something. It was a piece of literature that was originally probably written outside of Israel in, say, Aram, and then brought into Israel. So it has themes that are definitely not Israelite, like invasions by the Chaldeans. I think it's one of those things where it's, say, a parallel sort of, at least its literature is parallel to what you'd find in Israel. And I think what had happened was it found a ready acceptance within, say, Israelite canon. So that's basically where I would put Job. I'd say, let's just say, Iron Age 2. And again, I don't hold to an early Job. I don't hold to an early Job. I think a much later Job, basically before, say, the Babylonian exile, but sometime during the divided monarchy is where I place it. And its authorship is unknown. I think its source is also, say, from the Kingdom of Aram. That's where I sort of put it. That's where I think it would be, at least. So anyway, I hope that helped. Thank you very much for the super chat. Very much appreciated. But I don't see any compelling reason for it to be native to, say, Israelites. But I think it is when it is brought into, say, the Israelite canon, they're going to modernize a lot of, or contemporize a lot of the vocabulary to something that's more familiar to what Israelites would read. Okay, so thank you very much for the super chat. Very much appreciate it, and it's a good question. Mouthwash for $2. Thank you very much for the super chat. Sing a verse, your favorite pop country rock song. No one wants to hear me sing. Nobody wants to hear me sing. That would be the death of the channel right there. Mouthwash, but you've got to. I do. Oh, if I did that, oh no. You do not want to hear me sing. That'd be, oh, tone deaf. I'm getting a dirty look from my wife. She knows I'm not tone deaf.
You just don't do country music.
I don't do country music. Do not do country music at all.
Classic is my dog has fleas and everybody.
Yeah. No, I don't sing. Okay, so yeah, I'm not gonna sing a song. Sorry. I'm not gonna play the guitar either. So you're not gonna get any musical acts on this channel, okay? I compose. Okay? I do a lot of composition. That's where my musical talent lies. Okay? And you've heard a lot of my music already, whether or not you realize it. Okay? So, man, I'm being ripped off tonight. Okay, Mouthwash, I'll make it up to you, okay? I'll make it up to you, okay? When you hear the theme of this channel, okay? That's something that we wrote, okay? So, all the music we use on this channel is stuff we've written, okay? Yeah, when we did this, like the theme you hear at the beginning, the theme you hear in the little ditty you hear in the 60-second countdown, the opening credits and the closing credits, all of that is written. I wrote that, and the reason I wrote it was to get around copyright restrictions. Okay, so you have heard my music. You've actually heard a fair amount of my music. So now you've gotten your money's worth, and BC, Dr. Vulgus secretly, Hans Zimmer confirmed. I'm secretly Velociraptor. That's confirmed. Okay. So, you just got your money's worth. Okay? Tim, so you are the Velociraptor. Yes, I am the Velociraptor. So you've heard my music, yes, and I have published an album, and it is available. I think you can buy it off of, where was it now that you could buy it off of? Here. Let's see here. Where can you buy it off of? It's been so long since I looked at this. Oh, gee. Okay, where did I publish it with? Just take me a moment here to find it. Yeah, it's been that long since I looked at this. I could probably post it later, but I'm just seeing if I can find it quickly here. Amuse. That was it. Yeah, Amuse is my music publisher. Okay? So yeah, there you have it. The link to the it's like in every description. Yeah, well, it's the YouTube is. Yeah, the YouTube version of it isn't. But you can buy it off of Muse if you want to get the actual audio files and listen to the album. So yeah, but I think the whole album is around like something like 7 cents. People don't normally buy it. So but yeah, that whole album was done by me. So there you go. It was composed by me, and it was we did the music and the final editing and published it. So anyway, I hope you got your money's worth here. Finally, we don't want anyone to walk away feeling cheated on super chats. Okay. So anyway, thank you very much for the super chat. Very much appreciated. But you're not going to get a live performance. It's not what I do. Okay. All right. We got a $20 super chat here from Sinaiticus Apologia. Thank you very much for that super chat. Who do you think would win a battle royale? Team Ken Hovind and Ham, or Team I Want to Believe Bigfoot and Wyatt? Ooh. Okay. Hovind and Ham versus Bigfoot and Wyatt. That's actually kind of tough. Wow. That's a tough one. I don't know. I mean, Bigfoot is big and hairy, but we do know that Hovind has a mean right hook. I think Ken Ham would have a glass jaw. I think he would go down. And Wyatt doesn't seem that tough. So I think it would really come down to Hovind versus Bigfoot. And I think it's pretty evenly matched at that point. Might be a tie. It would basically it come down to who can bring the chair into the ring first. The folding chair in the ring is going to determine this one. So anyway, thank you very much for the super chat. Very much appreciated, but I don't know, this one's too close to call. Too close to call. Okay, Tim Miara for 2 British pounds. Thank you very much for the super chat. What does B'nai Elim mean in Psalm 29:1? Well, let's pull up Psalm 29:1. Psalm 29. B'nai Elim. Look at the Hebrew here. Okay, Mitzmor la David B'nai Benu le Adonai B'nai Elim. Okay. A Psalm of David to give to the Lord sons of the gods, or God, depending. But yeah. Okay. Alright, so let's pull this back here. Okay. So I mean, quite literally, it does say the sons of the gods. Okay. Given to the Lord, the sons of the sons of the gods. So there does seem to be that notion here of, say, the sons of God being. What does that exactly mean? That's going to depend on who you ask. Now, you do have, say, the Hazarites, who are basically going to say that this is the divine council. I don't have a problem with that interpretation. That works just fine for me. You also have, say, the Mark Smiths that are going to say that that the Lord Yahweh is one of many gods. Okay. I have more problems with that. I don't. But it's also going to say, give to the Lord glory and strength too. So this is a Yahwist hymn. This is totally a Yahwist hymn. So I would say here this is talking about the divine council. That's what I would say here. And I don't have a problem with Iron Age literature talking about a divine council. I think that's perfectly consistent with the genre and the history of the time. So Hazarites, well, that sounds like a clan. Well, I think it is kind of, isn't it? Yeah, so, yeah, it's probably the Divine Council is probably what it's referring to. The Camel Leopard says, are we Fulkites? I don't know, are you? You have to decide, every man has to decide that, has to do what's right in his own eyes. my my producer says that sounds theologically unsound. Okay, so but that's what I would say is its meaning in the original text does mean sons of the gods. So strictly speaking. So it is God in the plural. So yeah, I would say that this is a reference to the divine council, is what I would say. Okay. Yeah, Jan Alkovic, can't Elim be an early form of Elohim? Yeah, that's possible. That's a possible reading here. it is possible it could be an early reading of early orthography for Elohim. That's possible, but the other's possible as well, and I want to acknowledge the alternate possibility as well. Since we do have that theology in at least Second Temple period literature, it's rife in Second Temple period literature, and that has its foundation um, is extant into the Iron Age as well. So, and again, I don't have a problem with that, especially if taken in the view of monarchical monotheism. In the idea of monarchical monotheism, there's no issues here as far as uh, who Yahweh is. Okay. So anyway, thank you very much for the super chat. Very much appreciated. And let's move on to the next super chat. And it's we're starting to push those limits here of time. So again, we're gonna try to press through this at a quicker pace. Okay. Faye of the Duat for $2. Thank you very much for the super chat. Okay, gotta overlay here. Faye of the Duat, she says, I rate this 100th Q&A 100 clean socks. Couldn't resist. Didn't try hard either. Thank you very much for the super chat. Very much appreciated. Okay. I think we're starting to get finally to the end of the super chats here, I hope. So I do want to go to bed sometime tonight. I know the rest of you want me to be up for the next 8 hours, but I gotta work tomorrow. Let's see, making sure I didn't go blow past it. Okay. All right, we got here something from Jack Ray. Ancient Egypt and the Bible, 100 to celebrate the 100. Well, thank you very much for the super chat, for the contribution. Very much appreciated. Your generosity really has kept this channel going. We are so grateful for everything you've done for us, and so much appreciated. We feel so privileged to have such generous supporters like you. Again, we would not be making ends meet without your support. So thank you so very much. And thank you for supporting the work. That's what we care about, is the work. When the work is supported, people get answers. When people get answers, they learn and they grow. And that's what we're looking for, is people growing. So you're contributing to that, and it's making a difference. Thank you so very much. I'm going to take this non-super chat here just because I see it right now. Do you think Job was a real person? Yeah. Yeah, I do. I have no reason to think he wasn't a real person. Did some of the poetics happen as exactly as described? I'm not so sure, but it's poetry too. So the writer of Job is trying to communicate higher truth through poetic language. That's a form of compressed language. So the exact specifics might not be the same, but I think he was a real person. Boy, he had a wife that like he was a real person, so oof. So yeah, I think he was probably a real person. Okay. Okay, I think we are close to the end of the super chats. Okay. I think this is the last super chat we have. I'm just do a double check here because it's been a while since I've seen one here. Yeah, so this is the last super chat we have. From Mouthwash for $2. Thank you very much for the super chat. How much money must we come crowdfund for you to shave live?
5.7 million.
Oh.
That a funded chair.
Oh, I don't think you can afford that kind of money.
No, but you know what? If somebody came up with it, Jay,
well, let me put it this way. If you bought me a chair, a fully funded chair at a university, I'd shave. Okay? I wouldn't stay shaven, but I'd shave for a fully funded chair. Okay? I think that's somewhere in the realm of about $1 to $2 million.
no, we looked it up. It
Was $5 million? Okay, that's what a fully funded chair goes for these days. You crowdfund raised me $5 million fully funded chair, and I'll shave. Okay, and I'm probably going to regret those words.
you'd have a chair.
Well, yeah, I'd have a chair, but historical winning strategy. You'll pay.
Everybody's volunteering.
Everyone's volunteering Addison to pay for this. Where was that now? Where I just see it. Historical strategy. Addison will pay for it. I somehow doubt Addison pockets her that deep. Which university doesn't matter. Here's the thing. Here's the thing. One of the things about fully funded chairs, and this has happened. Okay, this has actually happened, where somebody has become what's called a research millionaire. Okay, and this is not unusual. This actually happens more often than people think, where some wealthy benefactor will really love your work, really, really love what you do, what you research on, and what you do. And he goes, well, I want you to continue working on this and not focusing on anything else for the next 20, 30 years. What they'll do is they'll write a check to the university for, say, $5 million on the provision, and this is the stipulation, that it funds the research of that person for the rest of their natural life. Okay? This is what's called a fully funded chair. Okay? The university wants that money really, really badly because it becomes part of their endowment. And what they do is they basically say, okay, somebody has put enough money to make a perpetual chair for that person. So they make an arrangement with the university that they get the money only on the provision that they have this other person become a chair. Okay, have this academic position within the university. Okay, and that money pays for the guy's salary for the rest of his life, as long as he's researching. Now, as soon as he gives it up, retires, quits, whatever, that money funds the next person who occupies it. So it becomes one of those things where it has to be a sum of money where the interest off that money pays salaries like forever. And this has happened to many people in history. Many people in history. So at that point, it pretty much becomes, okay, and it almost doesn't matter where you go at that point. You can, because almost any university will accept it. So typically it's done at a university that has a program. But sometimes it hasn't.
It is a lot about the library.
It is a lot about the library, okay? And admittedly, that whatever university there would do the chair, you would want that person to be at a place where there's a good library. Yeah. So, it's not random. These are not like random, hey, okay, we're going to plunk you into this little college in the middle of nowhere and have a fully funded chair. Normally these fully funded chairs are done at major, big research universities.
But if a Petrovic university in the middle of nowhere on a good fishing lake has borrowing privileges at a good library, that would be perfect.
My producer is now fantasizing. Fully funded chair at Johns Hopkins or something like that. Okay. So, but this has happened. This has happened, and it can happen in ways you don't expect it, where people, as I said, read your book, want more research like that, and just say, hey, here's your $5 million check. Go to any university and make yourself a chair. It doesn't happen to everyone. It's very rare, but it does happen. And so, if I got that chair, I'd shave my beard off. Okay?
That commentary on the book.
Okay. Well, let's not make too many promises, all right? So anyway, that's how this works. It's called a research millionaire, and there are a few people that have received it. Okay, so and people have crowdfunded this too. So even then, it's most recently, Sarah Parcak, she's a research millionaire now. She's received enough big funding that she never has to leave her university again. Unfortunately, her university is trying to squeeze her out, but that's internal politics and things like that happen. But she's a research millionaire, because she's earned so much by way of private funding that the university really can't dislodge her. So anyway, thank you very much for the super chat. Very much appreciated. But those are my terms. The beard's not coming off unless I got a research chair, okay? And that's $5 million, as I best recall, okay? Just for inflation, of course. I don't want some guy going, hey, 40 years ago, you said $5 million to shave off your beard. That's what, $10.50 now? Here you go. So we're not going to play that game, that usury game either, okay? He didn't specify which country's dollars, though. U.S. U.S. Although if you did manage to pull off 5 million Canadian, that would work too, honestly. Yeah, don't even think that the rupee or the ruble is going to cut it here. So, with that said, U.S. sand dollar, nope. So anyway, thank you very much for the super chat. Really appreciate it. All right, Josh Nichols for 4.99. Thank you very much for the super chat. Appreciate your work and love listening to your Q&As. Keep up the great work. Well, thank you very much, and thank you very much for your support. It really helps, and we do very much appreciate it, and I'm glad you enjoy the Q&As. We do have a lot of listeners that are who just, listen, tune into the live streams and just listen. And I'm surprised. I don't know how it doesn't put you guys to sleep, especially when you're driving. But as long as you stay awake behind the wheel, we don't have any problems here. Okay. So with that said, we are looking at hoping in the next year to start moving some of these Q&As over to podcasts. Now, the only reason we haven't done that so far is because it's cost us money to do that. So I would love to move these over to podcasts, get them on podcasts, so that people can have a choice between whether to watch on video or audio. But again, so far it's cost us money to do that. So we're still looking at some options here, and we might go down that road at some point. But yeah, we've wanted to convert these to podcasts for some time, but as I said, it's been a problem because of the way podcasting providers work in Canada. So this would be a lot easier if we were based out of the United States. If we were based out of the United States, it'd be no problem. There's a lot of free broadcasting providers out there, and we'd have no problems with this. But in Canada, it's a lot more difficult, especially as things get more and more dicey with Bill C-11, which is going to put huge restrictions on Canadian content creators. So very much keep us in prayers regarding this. We'd love to do it, and we just want to make sure that it's, when we first started this, it was like, okay, this looks interesting, looks reasonable, and then they started saying, okay, but yeah, if you get a lot of bandwidth here, we're going to start charging you for bandwidth. You're going to start charging me on bandwidth for a 3-hour podcast. That's going to get expensive quick. So we had to really sort of look at that and say, okay, where's our sort of line in the sand here? It's also the reason why we didn't get into merch until very recently. Is because a lot of merch stores required, say, deposits and memberships, ways they were collecting money. Now we fortunately have a really good merch provider who doesn't need money up front. That they're basically making their money on a just-in-time production. So we flat rate, and they do merch, and they do fantastic. But we saw some pretty awful stuff when we were looking for this. I mean, we saw a few merch providers that actually charge you. Yeah, the more you sold, the more they took. So eventually you were ending up making pennies on each item. So situations like that are really what we want to avoid. There's a lot of vendors out there that just want to scalp you. Really. And we want to make sure that when we do something like podcasting, we're reaching as many people as possible. And, they're not ripping us off, and they're not ripping you off. So, with that said, podcasting has been more difficult than we anticipated, despite the fact we do really want to do this. So, anyway, I'm so glad you enjoy listening to this. I'm glad you appreciate the work. We're going to keep doing it as long as we can. Thank you very much for the super chat. Very, very much appreciate it. Okay. We're down to, again, let's see here. Camel Leopard for $5. Thank you very much for the super chat. Or Camelopard. Super chat for prayers. I quit my job because they wouldn't give me Passover off after previously agreeing to, not sure where to go or what to do. Okay, absolutely. What we're going to do is we're going to put that on our Discord server. And we're going to, in fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that one right now, see if I can cut and paste that. All right, just a second here. And we are going to make sure that you are part of our prayer chain on our Discord. Where did it go here? Okay. Okay, I've just added to my Discord server here. Okay, so you'll get them praying for you. We also ask that our subscribers and our viewers here also pray for you, and I'll be praying for you as well. Okay? It is no fun to have to leave a job for under bad circumstances at the best of times. But if you have to do it because of a reason of faith, I think that's a really unreasonable thing to a employer to demand. And I'm in the process of making a similar move myself. So I understand this one entirely. So, yeah, you have my prayers. I'll be praying for you, and I hope you get a new job soon. One that's better suited for you anyway. You know, this is obviously they're not going to be flexible here. They're probably not being flexible in other ways as well. So, and I think it's kind of foolish in this sort of economy right now where it's basically a workers' market to really sort of be like this. Okay. So, again, I will pray for you. My people on Discord will pray for you. And I'm asking my subscribers to also pray for you. So, anyway, thank you very much for letting us know your prayer need. And we will keep you in our prayers. And thank you very much for the super chat. Slim2K for $2. Any idea why the name Lucifer is only in the King James Version? Yes, actually, I do have a reason. It's only found in the King James Version because it's taken from the Latin Vulgate. Okay, it's what's called a traditional rendering. Now, let me see if I can find the equivalent here in the Hebrew here. So, I look up Lucifer. Yeah. Okay, the King James Version has Lucifer in Isaiah 12:14. Okay? Or 14:12, sorry. So Isaiah 14:12. Now, if we go to say the Masoretic text, where it says Hayel, and I'll just actually let's just bring this up here. I'm going to start here at the King James Version. Okay, so Bible here, and this is the only place where Lucifer actually occurs in the King James Version. Okay, so which is, "How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground? Which didst thou weaken the nations, O Lucifer, O day star?" Okay, now that's a gloss that's added. But it occurs in this particular passage because of the Latin Vulgate. And what it's going to do is the Vulgate here, it's going to take the Hebrew. Now, if we look at the Hebrew here, pull up the Hebrew. And the word for that they use to translate Lucifer is a Halil. And Halil means bright one, shining one. It's a noun absolute. Okay, so it's basically to mean shining or bright one. Okay. Now, Lucifer is Latin for light bearer. So the Latin Vulgate is going to basically translate this as light bearer. So when the time it comes to the King James Committee to translate this, they're going to use something that's more familiar to them. And to them, the Latin Vulgate is going to be what's familiar to them. So they're going to take that translation from the Vulgate and they're going to use this as a traditional rendering. Again, this is a very, very popular passage in, say, Roman Catholic and Reformed circles. So, it's one of those, today, it's not so popular a passage, but a lot of medieval exegetes really love this passage in Isaiah. So whenever you have a traditional rendering of a passage, you have to remember that translators, when they choose a traditional rendering, they're usually choosing it because to render a passage any other way would be very, very unpopular. This is why we still find, for example, even today, say the Yam Suf in Exodus is translated as Red Sea when it should be translated Sea of Reeds. It's a traditional rendering. If you translate it any other way, a lot of people get upset. They get angry because it's not what they always knew. Back when the King James Bible was being written, they wouldn't say, like, for example, here, O Star of the Morning, which is basically that Lucifer passage here. Instead, it's really, O Shining One of the Morning. O Shining One of the Morning. You did that translation like that in, say, 1611, you're getting in trouble. Okay, people aren't going to like that because they've heard the Latin Vulgate all their lives. So they know that for them, it should be translated as, "O Lucifer of, Son of the Dawn." So, that's going to matter to them. That's going to matter to them intensely. So again, it's a traditional rendering. It comes from the Latin Vulgate, and it's just one of those things that it was kind of part and parcel to the to basically everyone's collective biblical knowledge. And that's the problem with common knowledge, is it's not always correct. So that's why it shows up only in the KJV. And again, it's tradition. So anyway, thank you very much for the super chat. Very, very much appreciate it. Okay, I think that's the last super chat. I think it is. Okay, awesome. Okay, last. Oh, gee. Oh, now you're getting me in trouble here. Where to go? There it is. Camel leopard. Ancient Egypt, hold the phone. Hold the phone. You mean to tell me that the KJV isn't divinely inspired? I'm shocked. Shocked, I tell you. Now you're trying to get me in trouble with the KJV only people. Like I'm not already. Okay, so we're pushing midnight at this point. I'm tired. I'm gonna want to go to bed soon. So we'll take a few non-super chats, maybe 2, and then call it a night. Unless a final super chat comes in. So anyway. Well, I'll find a couple non-super chats here, and then we're done unless a final one comes in. So BC. The KJV is the greatest translation of all time by the greatest American of all time, Jesus. Some people think this. I don't know what to tell you. Ooh. All right, that's actually a decent. Oh. All right. We just got a super chat here from Sentinel Apologetics. Hi, Rob. How's it going? For $10 Australian. Thank you very much, super chats. Blessings, David. I discovered something very profound in Daniel 11 and 12, 2-3 about the mysterious Maskalim. Okay, interesting. Let's see what you got here. Apparently, this could be by Daniel the oldest interpretation of Isaiah 53:11. Okay. Interesting. I don't have anything to comment on that, but be interesting. I mean, mescaline couldn't be just that reciting of poetry over and over again. So that's some very interesting stuff right there. So there might be more. Aha. Okay, I got a few more super chats here. So anyway, Rob, thank you very much for the super chat. Very much appreciated. I'd like to hear more about this at some point. Okay. Babel Exegete for 25 Romanian. Thank you very much for the super chat. Why do you think Rehoboam's 5th year was Jeroboam's 1st year? That's because of Tili. Tili actually made that connection between the two. I'd have to go back and look at the specific reasons for that, but that's in Tili. So that's where I got it from. And he did a book called The Mysterious Numbers of the Kings, where he reconciled the lineages of the kings of Israel, of the northern kingdom of Israel, and the kings of Judah. And that's where he sort of draws that. And it does make sense. If you put Jeroboam's 1st year earlier in Rehoboam's reign, you start getting inconsistencies in the synchronisms. So there's a really good, solid chronological reason why we peg Rehoboam's 5th year as Jeroboam's 1st. Okay. Now, that said, however, there's nothing in the Bible that specifically says it. But with the reign lengths of those kings, you have to account for that. You have to account for the fact that if you put it lower than that, then everything else goes out of whack. So, I think that's really important when we start taking into that into account. Okay. So anyway, I hope that answered your question. Again, comes back to Tili and his reconciliation of the various kings, and I verified this too in say the in Groundhog as well. So it works. But you push that any earlier, bad stuff starts happening with the chronologies. So it basically boils down to that. Anyway, thank you very much for the super chat. Very much appreciate it, and I hope that helped. I know you've been asking that as a non-super chat for a little while. We just haven't gotten to it just because things are just, well, sometimes crazy on these live streams. But it's a good question. It's a good question, and it deserves to be answered. All right. The final super chat here is from Bane Ray for $5. Thank you very much for the super chat. I'd like to sponsor Christo Maois's question. And I see it, and it's a great question. Okay. And Christo Maois goes, I want to be a Bible scholar one day. What could I expect that as a career with that as a career? Ooh. I'm taking this seriously. A lot of this is going to depend on what your career goals are. I did a video, one of my earliest videos is what I think was called 5 Reasons Not to Become an Egyptologist and 1 Reason to Be. I have sort of a very similar view about Bible scholar. Now, I wanted to do a second video to that, which was 5 reasons not to become a Bible scholar and 1 reason to be. But my wife convinced me not to do that at the time. And she's changed her mind. mm. uh, here's what I think. I think it can be a really, really rewarding career. It's also a very political career. Okay. Seminaries today are they're just rife with politics. It's rife with politics. You can expect to be dealing with politics almost your entire career. I shouldn't have to say that.
You may not get to actually.
Yeah, and you may not actually get to study the Bible if you do this. That's the other thing, too.
Yeah.
It will a lot depend on where you land in your position. I used to say when people... First of all, you're going to have to go through a lot of graduate school. Okay, a lot of graduate school. I mean, I went through a decade of grad school. That's not counting my undergrad. That's just my postgraduate. 10 years of graduate school. Okay? So that's my master's degrees and my PhD. And I'm kind of glad I was able to get through my PhD quickly, but that's no guarantee. Most PhDs don't get through it. My master's level work took a lot longer than my PhD. I did 7 years in master's programs and 3 years in a PhD. But that's very, very unusual to do a PhD in 3 years. Most people will not be able to do it. So, well, I also had a very clear idea of what I was doing as well, and pretty much from day one. So most students are not that, don't have that experience going into it. Now, with all that said, I have 3 general rules of grad school, okay? And though I know this is not your question, but it leads to the question. People have asked me, what do you have to do to be successful at grad school? Okay? I say 3 rules, okay? First one is know the system. Second is jump through the hoop. Third one is don't make waves. Okay? You notice I didn't talk about anything about learning the material, writing good papers, all that stuff, okay? Those are important too. But those are the 3 rules that'll get you through. The one thing about working as a Bible scholar is rules 1 and 2 drop out and almost entirely devolves into rule 3, which is don't make waves. I can't stress this enough. If you want to become a Bible scholar, you have to have a personality where you don't make waves. You make any waves at all. If you have a YouTube channel, that'll make waves. Yeah, having a YouTube channel will make you ineligible to be a Bible scholar professionally. Just because it makes waves. And it's not always the waves you expect. Like, for example, if you are a celebrity, and that's sometimes worse than being someone who's criticized all the time. Being a celebrity creates disruption within a department. You get jealousies. And because you get jealousies within a department, people don't want you around if you are a celebrity of any note. So a YouTube channel, and a successful YouTube channel even more so, it doesn't matter if you're saving tens of thousands of people, from the fires of hell. That doesn't matter. What matters is how you're going to work in that department. Are people going to be jealous of you if the chair of the department hires you? Is your YouTube career going to interfere with what other people are doing or show them up? That's a problem. And they're very, very aware of this. Is what you say in public going to be a problem with the donors? Huge issue. You are beholden to the donors in an academic setting. The donors run the school. You don't. So, this is unfortunately the reality of being a Bible scholar. And this is why most Bible scholars today are in duck and cover mode. They're essentially hiding under their desks. They're hiding under the desks because they're afraid of students, the donors, the other faculty. And it's a really unfortunate situation. And it's led to now generations of Bible scholars training new Bible scholars that are in duck and cover mode. So we've got this toxic mix right now of people who in the seminaries who are incompetent, selfish, completely selfish, completely self-interested in their career and nothing else. I had one professor at seminary that would never take, if you asked him any request at all, a knee-jerk no. Didn't matter what it was. Can I take this course? No. You need the requisite Hebrew. I have the requisite Hebrew. Still no. Can I get a letter of recommendation? No. The guy would take no personal risks, none at all. He was so risk adverse. It would just really, and the guy had a yellow stripe down his back a mile wide. It was and then this guy was a full professor at a famous Christian seminary. And if I said his name, it'd probably even shock you. So, but that sort of gives you an insight of what it would be like as a career. Your first 7 years are going to be your first 5 years. Let's say you do manage to get good recommendations. You've networked well. You land that first academic job. Okay, as assistant professor somewhere. You're going to spend the next 5 years ignoring your family to write as much academic published material as possible. And I say first 5. A lot of people wait till year 5, but it's too late. Too late. You have to build up that portfolio of academic material to get tenure. Because of the slowness of the publishing cycle, anything you publish in year 6 and 7 won't appear in print by the time you need it for your tenure track review. Yeah, there's been cases where we've written stuff in like year 3 and it still hasn't shown up in year 7 in press because the academic presses are slow. But you're pretty much guaranteed anything you write in year 6 will not appear. So your first 5 years you're putting your blood, sweat, and tears into producing as much academic literature as you can while simultaneously put together curricula to teach your classes. So you're going to be overworked in your first 5 years of an academic post in a way you've never experienced in your life. It's really brutal. And very, very few tenure track professors make tenure. Just because of that. It's a rough game. It's a political game. There'll be enemies in your department. It's like you wouldn't think that in a Christian college you'd have enemies, but oh boy, you can make some incredible enemies in that setting. And people who you trusted will stab you in the back, and you're wondering, hey, aren't we on the same side? Aren't we all on the side of Christ here? Oh, not if you get between them and their meal ticket. Yeah, you'll see how quickly the daggers come out. So yeah, it's a hard life. I'll say that it's a hard life. If you go find an institution that's really fits with you, that's really cool with you and chill with you, and you share the same values, it can be wonderful. Okay. That's And if you have one that supports your research, that's really sort of backing your research and wants to see more of your research, and the department really values it, and the university really values it, then you've won the lottery here, and you have then the opportunity to study what's the most phenomenal book ever written for the rest of your natural life. And that can be worth it. That can actually be worth it. I mean, I love studying the Bible. Studying the Bible is fantastic. I'd do that all day if I could. All day. If I didn't have to earn a living, with a day job, I would be doing just that. Because it's just a phenomenal thing. Research is beautiful. I love research. I would do it every day, all day, if I could. But that's the one reason to do it, is for the love of the research. Love the research and what it benefits others. Okay? How it benefits others. So, absolutely, if you want to go for this, I would say, yeah, it's worth the risk. But understand, you're at this point, it's almost comparable to professional sports. It's almost where, a lot of people will try out for high school football. 1,000 will make it to the NFL. So it's kind of like that. It's never couched in those terms, okay? It's never couched in those sort of the statistics, but it's very similar. And it's very similar in how those games are played too. Okay? Very much the best, the ones with the best networking, the ones with the best professors, the ones whose recommendations carry the most weight. A lot of Ivy Leagues. You'll be competing with a lot of people from the Ivy League, and they'll have an unfair advantage because of the reputation of the Ivy League. So yeah, it's difficult. It's really, really difficult. So anyway, I hope that answered your question. Thank you very much, Bane Ray, for sponsoring that question. It's a tough life. If you can manage it, if you can succeed at it, it's worth it. I'll say that. There's also a second question here that I actually am going to take as well here. I just saw it. From BC. And if you don't make it, then what? Well, then you get into the whole wonderful world of post-academia. A lot of people don't have a plan B, and when they get out of finish their PhD, because most PhDs are unemployable because there's too many of them, just too many of them. So most of them will never make it into academia. Okay, but there's a lot of places where those skills are transferable. A lot of them will end up running charities, because charities love having a PhD. The prestige of a PhD running their particular mission. And there's a lot of transferable skills between charities and the academic world. Both are nonprofits, at least in theory. They require the ability to have soft skills to communicate to your donors, just like a university. You have to minister things such as payroll and organize, your employees, just like a professor organizing his students. So yeah, there's a lot of say crossover there. There's also private industry. Okay, a lot of people end up in private industry. It's amazing how many people I knew from TEDS who earned, say, an MDiv, Master of Divinity, who ended up becoming VPs of private companies. And you sort of think, well, what does a vice president position have anything to do with a Master of Divinity until you start thinking about it? Well, okay, as an MDiv, you're taught how to be a good public speaker. You're taught how to organize a church, which is, not unsimilar to a small corporation when it comes right down to it. You're having to mediate between various parties. There's your counseling skills. People who earn an MDiv are often really successful if they become a VP of a company, a vice president of a company. Very successful. So there's a lot of opportunities out there for people who don't have or are who have these degrees but didn't get Plan A. But it does take work, and it does take positioning yourself to be able to assume those roles. And that's the hardest thing, is it can be very, very difficult to transition yourself in such a way that, or position yourself in such a way that you look attractive to an employer without those skills being immediately apparent. You have to connect the dots for them. Okay? So anyway, I hope that answered your question. Thank you very much, and very much appreciate that question. Okay. I think I saw one more super chat in the back here from the Camilla Pard for $2. What should I do if my pigs turn into Set Beast? Ooh. I don't know, man. Exorcism might be in order. Do what Jesus did at Gerizim. The Gerizim demoniac. Historical strategy gaming says. Run. I think that's the best advice. Run. If your pig farm starts looking like a bunch of Seth bees, get the heck out. You don't want to mess with that. Flag down the aliens and leave, because this is not going to end well. Yes. Yeah, run. Still run. I don't think the apotropaic. If you have to start writing apotropaic amulets like mad, it's already too late. You're beyond apotropaic amulets if your pig herd starts turning into Typhonian beasts. Sorry, that's just it. Get the heck out. Just leave the scene fast and quick, as quickly as you can. Yeah, at that point's too late. Okay, so anyway.
Wants to give them energy drinks?
Just offer them energy drinks and embrace the chaos? Oh, no. Energy drinks to Seth animals that have turned from pigs. Well, they would get chaos, I'll tell you that. just feed energy drinks to a normal herd of pigs and see what happens. And throw in some cheeseburgers too. Feed pigs some energy drinks and cheeseburgers and see what happens. I mean, that's good fun. Good fun. Jack Ray aliens. I like that one. Aliens husbands. That's it, man. Game over, man. Game over. Cocaine pigs. Yeah, kind of like Cocaine Bear.
Cocaine. Sequel to Cocaine.
Yeah, the sequel to the Cocaine Bear is the Cocaine Pigs. Yeah, that's you're doing well at that point. Yeah, not a good idea. Just
Baking kids.
yeah, not a good idea. Basically, don't feed your pigs energy drinks. Don't feed them cocaine, and get out of there when they start turning into Typhonian beasts. I think it's I think it's real simple at that point. Let's not overthink this. Would pigs hog all the screen time on that movie? I guess they'd ham it up. Oh, yeah. Could be. Oh, wow. Okay, it's 20 after midnight here. It's getting very, very late. I will take one non-super chat because our non-super chats kind of got interrupted by these excellent, enlightening super chats. But then we're going to call it a night. Because again, I do have to get up in the morning. So I'll take one non-super chat and I'll try to go from the top here, or at least the middle one. And then we'll call it a night. Okay. This has certainly been a fun one. I'll say that. Cocaine pigs, Seth animals. We didn't get into the food wars, fortunately, but okay. It's a very early one, but I like this question. And this will be our I'll take this one here. From Nino KR777. And this will be our last non-super chat for the night. Okay. And he asks, was Scorpion a mythological or the first pharaoh king of Egypt? I'm asking because I find it weird and curious to see that out of all the kings of Egypt, he is the only one named after an arachnid. Yeah, he is the only one named after an arachnid. But he's not the only one named after an arachnid. Because there's actually two Scorpion kings. There's Scorpion 1, Scorpion 2. Now, he is in the pre-dynastic period in an era called Naqada 3 or Dynasty 0. And there was, as I said, two of them. One of them is on Scorpion Mace Head. So he's not mythological. Not mythological. This is a real king. He's a real king of Upper Egypt. All these, both Scorpion kings were of Upper Egypt. But we also find remains of Serex, and that's kind of a primitive cartouche-like thing, naming device, of Scorpion found at the tombs at Abydos and at Al-Qab. So these were real kings. I mean, he was a real. Both Scorpion 1 and Scorpion 2 are real kings. Okay, and they were both named after the Scorpion, an arachnid. But we also find that there are other kings of that period too that were named after other animals, such as Hor, the horse bird, and Den, and etc. And there's others as well, Jer. So this was actually fairly common. We do see these early Naqada 3 kings often being named after animals. Animal deities. We're not exactly sure always completely which deity it was, whether in the case of Scorpion it was Selket or a different deity, but Selket being a scorpion goddess. Okay. But it happens. And he's not the first king of unified Egypt. Okay? And he's not even the first king of Naqada 3. but he's not mythological either. So, it's a good question. It's an interesting question because, frankly, the movie Scorpion King did not do anything to improve this. Okay. And the special effects of the Scorpion King did not hold up well. Oh my gosh. It made the Rock Johnson look like Rubber Man. They're terrible special effects. Terrible special effects. However, there were two Scorpion kings named Scorpion in the God of Three. So, as I said, Scorpion 1, Scorpion 2, and they're not mythological. They're real kings. We have more than enough evidence to show they're real. So, anyway, I want to thank you for that non-super chat. Scorpion Jack Ray, Scorpion King effects were bad. Then, they're so awful. So awful. Terrible special effects. Ooh. Okay, so we're gonna wrap this up then. That's the last non-super chat, and we got no more super chats, so I get to finally go to bed. Awesome. This has been a really, really fun live stream tonight. Just an amazing live stream. We had some great questions. We had a lot of fun talk too. Yeah. Yeah, you could say they were bad. Really, really bad. Not good. Not good at all. So anyway, this has been a wonderful live stream tonight. Thank you for joining us here for our 100th live stream. It was an amazing time. We want to thank our super chatters who basically have helped to keep the lights on, the electricity running, and food on our tables. We also want to thank the Patreon supporters who are paying for our up-and-coming RAM upgrade, which we desperately need. And we really appreciate all the support we get from the Patreon supporters. We also want to thank our regular viewers and subscribers who just, leave comments, likes, and, basically help feed the algorithm, because the algorithm is going entirely on comments and likes and dislikes and are basically promoting our videos because of that. So with that said, if you haven't subscribed, please do so. Click that subscribe button and the bell notification. I want to thank you everyone for watching and being with us tonight. Have a great night, and I will see you next time on Ancient Egypt and the Bible. Good night, everyone.